Goodlettsville, we got a crash reported by police 65 southbound approaching Long Hollow Pike. Talbot's Corner. Boy, that's been an active place today. Another crash, 65 southbound there at Trinity Lane. And in Smyrna, in Rutherford County, rolling roadblock. Looks like the right lane is blocked here. 24 eastbound at Sam Ridley Parkway. Over by Belmont, got a crash. 440 eastbound at Hillsborough Pike. I'm Ken Weaver.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. We had so much fun yesterday talking about slang. You guys really got me thinking, yes, we have to get to some regularly scheduled programming. We've got some good things to talk about, but it is a Friday. And I want, again, for you guys to be the directors of the show. Tell me what you want to talk about, what's important to you. The Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986, is always open for you to text in. Let me know what you're going on. Jackson, Action Jackson, something like that. We'll open the phone line so that you can call in to on this lovely Friday and tell me what you want to talk about. As we get started, as I always do, I go over my background so you know where I'm coming from. I never want folks to say, hey, he had a hidden special interest that he got out there, so I want you to know what I do. I am on the editorial board of The Tennessean. I'm a columnist over there. Actually, we'll have our opinion editor, Takuma Roback, on in the 4 o'clock hour. I'm a partner in a media company. My day job is helping people grow business through gratitude at Thanks. They graciously allow me to spend some time periodically filling in over here, and I really, really appreciate that flexibility. And it's kind of wild. A little appreciation goes a long way. Y'all are like family to me. I love seeing you guys show up like clockwork. That's why I wrote the album Wasted Bacon for you. There are several of you who are mentioned by name in some of the songs because you matter that much to me. And I know that's how the rest of the full-time hosts on this station feel about you guys too. So go check that out as well. Let me know what your favorite Wasted Bacon song is. I'd love to hear it. 2660 says, call-in shows are boring. Come with something to talk about. Well, I'll tell you what. I've got plenty of things for us to talk about. 7th congressional race. I told you yesterday we're going to talk about the impact of Trump's policies on farmers. We need to call balls and strikes. Tell it like it is. I know several of you guys do care about having your voice heard, and I want to make sure that that's the case. So we'll do a little bit of both, but I really, really appreciate you, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So this time of year, I want to give you a couple of topics to weigh in on while the show's going on. So the first one, near and dear to my heart, is high school football. I love football. As I mentioned yesterday, to quote Ted Lasso, football is life. We enjoy it very much. My boys play it at various levels, and I want to hear, here's question one. Who is the best high school football team in the state of Tennessee right now? Sort of a follow-on to that in the listening audience, Middle Tennessee, who's the best one there? Let me know. And I'll go ahead and tell you the second question that is really I want you to chime in for the whole show. What is the worst job you've ever had and why? I was thinking about this with the shutdown. Man, being a bureaucrat sounds like a pretty rough job to me. Some people do it and do it well. I don't think I would survive a day, let alone a whole career, working in some agency somewhere. But it made me think about, I've had some interesting job. And I want to talk about those with you, and I want to hear what your worst jobs were. So that's real exciting. I can tell you, I mentioned it yesterday. One of the worst jobs I've ever had is baling hay, particularly when I was the man that they were tossing the bales to in the loft. I don't care how you deal with that. I also worked in a local kitchen and bath company, and in the warehouse. It was wild. And I was also a Little League umpire. So those are pretty awesome. So, that's interesting. Speaking of high school football, 4536 said, are you aware Fort Campbell High School football is not playing due to the government shutdown? I did not know that, but I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, that alone right there is a reason not to have government shutdown. Not to mention that these things don't actually save us money. They're a political pageantry, and they're kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So if you kill high school football too, that's just doesn't work for me. Okay, the big news of the hour, the biggest news, I should say, is in the 7th congressional race. Trump has endorsed Matt Van Epps. That is, any way you cut it, that is a huge announcement. What's interesting here in this race is early voting has already happened. That's already behind us. It ended, I believe, yesterday. And so Van Epps is well situated. You get this endorsement. It's by far the biggest endorsement anybody could get. Matt feels the same way. I'm kind of this way. Endorsements mostly don't really matter that much. Like, I don't think many people are looking at the super PACs and saying, well, they endorsed this candidate or that candidate. Like, But the Trump endorsement is a big one. The number of votes, let me look at it and see if I can pull it up. I was looking at it earlier today. I'll get the numbers for you. But there they are. Okay, cool. The early and absentee voters for the October 7th primary elections. So this is, the election day is on the 7th. So don't forget that. Write that down. If you're in the 7th congressional district, you need to go vote. But the total votes cast through October 1, 2025 at 8:12 a.m. were 26,805 votes. There were 13,866 Republican. And I think this is really interesting. There were 12,939 Democrats. I don't know what the breakdown is, but I do know, or I should say, I don't know what the ultimate breakdown will be. The district favors Republicans. It just does. It was gerrymandered that way. It's not a bad word. Tennessee Republicans had the numbers, and they said, you know what, we're going to carve up Jim Cooper's district so that the 7th, the 5th, it's kind of, think about they did pizza pie slices out of Nashville to kind of break it up. That's what happened. That's the truth. Again, when the people of the state give you the numbers to do that, that's what political folks do. I know that some people do not like that. I think that the best way to sort all this out is to let people do what they have the majorities to do and don't try to play altruism. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like it's bad to be altruistic. It's more like when California tries to act like, well, we have these independent commissions and this is totally fair. They're not telling the truth. Guess who appoints those commissioners? Guess how that all kind of shakes out? Well, you already know. And so what you should do is say, we're going to draw the districts most favorable to the majority. And then they'll do that in California too. and then we'll let the cards fall where they may. But in this one, the fact that Democrats in early voting appear almost as motivated as Republicans, and Republicans have the numbers. If this type of thing maintains, Republicans lose their advantage. That's a big deal. Because I'm looking here, and you're looking at less than 1,000 votes difference between Republican and Democrat right now. And I don't know if the Democrats have coalesced around any specific candidate. Afton Bain, I think Bo Mitchell's in there. There's a couple others. But their turnout is pretty dang close in early and absentee voting. So this is going to come down to the election day on the 7th. The problem that we're going to run into here is that we're heading into the weekend. And for a lot of schools, we're heading into fall break, right? So I don't know if this endorsement coming today gives them enough time to really get the word out and say, hey, I'm Trump's guy. I'm Bill Lee's guy. I'm Mark Green's guy. That's what the Van App's camp wants you to hear. I just don't know that they have enough time to get it out. And I'm sure Jody Barrett, Lee Reeves, Gino Bulso, and the others are very glad about that, because a Trump endorsement in Tennessee matters a whole lot. I just don't know heading into the weekend if they're going to have time to really socialize this, get it out there. In fact, they're probably going to have to they're probably going to have to ask their supporters, like, hey, tell everyone you know this is the case. So I think it's a big deal. I think it matters. I think it's really late. And I'm wondering why the Trump endorsement came really late. He did his traditional Rickroll endorsement thing he does, which is say some stuff that clearly the candidates told him to say, and then he says, we'll never let you down. We'll never hurt you. There probably needs to be some music, but really it's a check the box. Trump endorsed Matt Van Epps, and I think that gives him the inside track now, where previously I thought it was a toss-up, but if I had to give the edge, it would have probably been to Jody Barrett. Lee Reeves came out strong early, but I haven't heard a lot out of their camp. So I don't know if that was, hey, we did ad buys early and didn't have the money to do them late. And then Gino Bulso and several of the others, Crowley, y'all seem to really like after Matt did an interview with him. We'll see how it shakes out. I think this one is still going to be a toss-up. I give the edge to Van Epps here, but I don't think it's a runaway, and I would be shocked if he got 51% of the vote. I mean, truly shocked. My guess is the winner walks away with sub 40% of the vote, and they'll be the next congressman from the 7th Congressional, barring some kind of fluke result. I'll be interested to see who the Democratic nominee is, and if these numbers can hold. I just don't think they'll hold to the general, because in the general, Republicans just say, you know what, we got our person, we'll show up, and then the math doesn't work for the Democrat. But right now, it looks like the math's working for the Democrat. We're going to take a real quick break, and then I'll get to you. Several of y'all have told me your worst jobs, and I want to get to some of those and get your thoughts on this race. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy for Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply. Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply is your go-to shop for everything landscaping, and the summer season is closing to an end, and that means it is time for fall. And fall means fertilizer. Fall means herbicide. Fall means getting that lawn ready so that you don't have to worry about it over the winter months. Now, If you get your lawn looking its best, Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply is probably already on the agenda. But if you need something, it's time to get to Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply. For fall seeding, September and October are the ideal months. They have their exclusive proven turf technology, tall fescue blend, premium starter fertilizers, top quality seeds and herbicides at the best prices. Ask their experts how to DIY yourself into the best lawn in the neighborhood. That's what it's all about. Shop where the pros go. Go to Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply. Visit one of their 7, count them 7, Middle Tennessee locations. Find out more by going to DickensSupply.com. That's DickensSupply.com. And when you go where the pros go at Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply, tell them Matt Murphy sent you. DickensSupply.com. For Defend Systems, you know, it's such an important time to talk about Defend Systems and Brink Fiddler. We had him on yesterday discussing the tragedy out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. It reminds me of what I try to tell you every time I talk about Defend Systems, and that is the possibility of you finding yourself in a workplace violence situation, the possibility of you finding yourself in a mass shooter situation, the possibility of you finding yourself in some sort of active shooter response or rapid response medical is very, very, very low. Very low. But it's not zero. And so while I'm not here to scare you, I am here to tell you that hope is not a plan anymore. It's time to get trained. And the way that you do it, if you're a business owner, if you are a decision maker, any place that people gather, at a corporation, at a business where you have customers coming in all day long, maybe it's a church group or a church setting or perhaps a school, it is time to get trained with Defense Systems. They can give you the tools and the knowledge that you need in the unlikely event that something like this happens to you. It's invaluable, and it really does work. I've been through their courses. I've been through the TECC course as well. And I love the fact that I feel trained in the unlikely event that I would find myself in this situation. 615-236-6484, 236-6484, or defensesystems.com.
Hamas has reportedly agreed to some of President Trump's Gaza ceasefire proposal. I'll tell you about that and other top stories at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I am Cameron Smith. Thanks for spending some time with me today. So other news just in from our very own Pamela Furr, the maven of AFP, said that Lee Reeves has dropped out and in the 7th Congressional and endorsed Matt Van Epps. It was an interesting, Pamela sent it to me and I read it, the Reeves statement, and it was, I said that Trump's our quarterback called a play I didn't expect, and that was endorsing Van Epps, so I'm withdrawing and supporting Van Epps. Again, I don't know that it, here's the deal. Reeves will still be on the ballots. We're not going to reprint the ballots in 4 days over the weekend. So I don't think enough people are going to get enough of this news prior to election day. It's going to be low turnout. There will not be a ton of people there. And so this kind of throws things into a bit of chaos because it's functionally now, in my mind, Van Epps has the edge. Barrett has done a really good job of getting his face out there. And a couple of y'all said, man, they're afraid of fill-in candidate here. I don't think anybody's afraid of anybody here. I think it's simply a low-dollar race where they've all had trouble getting their stuff out, and they've had third-party groups do a lot of the heavy lifting for them. And I see it as Van Epps has the inside track now. Barrett is probably my number 2 as far as where I think it's going to shake out. Bulso, number 3. Crowley and the others will sort of split up the rest of the field. I don't know how many I don't know if they will take a material component. If I had to guess, the top 3 that I named will take 60-70% together. I'd be shocked if anybody was hit the 40s. But with Reeves out, I think it's possible. I just don't think enough people are going to know. They're going to go in there and they like Lee Reeves and they know him. Some may know he withdrew, but I don't think all of them will. So it's going to be real wild. And I just don't think this was an inspired field. I don't think this was terribly exciting. I think Van Epps probably did what he needed to do with securing the green endorsement, Governor Lee, and now the president. I mean, that's a pretty good trifecta. And I don't know that any other endorsements right now are really, they're not going to add much. So we'll see, but that's kind of where we are. That's the latest, greatest there. I'm going to run down. First question I asked, who's the best football team in the state of Tennessee? And I got several responses. Oakland High School, particularly in the listening area. I thought Blackman High School was excellent when they walloped Nolensville, and Oakland blanked Blackman. So I like Oakland as an answer, but I'd be interested to hear other answers that make sense there because I really do want to know. The worst job I've ever had, probably working at a kitchen and bath warehouse where I was on the floor. There's sawdust going everywhere, and glue. Like the glue that they put to put the laminate on the countertops. And they don't really do that as much anymore. Laminate countertops are not as much of a thing. They got all kind of synthetic materials now. But that was kind of the thing when I was a teenager. And one of my buddies, his dad owned this place, and I would go and work there. And the glue would mix with the sawdust and get in your hair. And at the end of the summer, I just had to shave off all my hair because it was like a toupee that was frozen. It just was a mess of glue and dust, and I couldn't even really wash it out. So that was pretty rough too. What do we see on the Super Talk not sex line, text line? Freudian slip there. Sorry. Thank you, Jackson. Y'all enjoy it. I'm a little bit fried right now. It's the Super Talk sex line. No, I apologize. It is not. It's the text line.
Double down on it.
No, I said that on purpose. 615-737-9986. Now the phone lines are lighting up.
Yeah.
Everyone's calling now.
Well, I got to get some of that.
Yeah. No, this is not where you want to get that from. Let me just tell you, we're radio people here.
Yeah.
I got a face for radio. Y'all online can see that. So y'all have a number of ones. Working tobacco. That several of y'all said working tobacco. I got a telemarketer. It said that was awful. I'll tell you an also mention for me. Most people don't know this, but y'all remember the yellow pages? I delivered phone books.
All right.
So we would get, and that, y'all who are old enough to remember it, phone books were thick, man.
Yes, sir.
They were like 3 inches thick and heavy. And so you'd load down a car or truck, and then you would like pitch them.
Yep.
And you'd get one load done, and they'd clear you and pay you, get another load done. And that's how everybody got the phone book. Because there was no Google, there was no ability to kind of look up stuff. You had to look it up in the phone book. Mm-hmm. That's how you knew who to call. So that one was pretty rough. I got car salesman, did that for 5 months, never again. 5689 has a good one. My first job in college was working for an illegal sports wagering operation.
That's an awesome job.
I was always worried. I bet.
Yeah.
Well, now we have those all over the place. Envelope stuffing as a teenager.
Ooh, I did that. It was horrible.
Yeah, yep. 2766. My worst job was at a duck processing plant in the mornings. I cut the duck's feet off in the afternoon. I cut calluses off the duck's feet. Apparently, duck's feet are a delicacy. My boss said, "You're such a hard worker." Would you know any friends that would like to work here? And I said, "Heck no, I don't even want to work here."
Ken.
That's great. I'm sorry. That got me all choked up. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And in a major development, Hamas has reportedly agreed to some of President Trump's Gaza ceasefire proposal, including releasing all remaining hostages, both living and deceased, but says it needs more negotiations. Trump has set a deadline of 6 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday for Hamas to accept this deal. He warned that if the group rejects the offer, Israel will have full U.S. backing for a new military offensive. Another U.S. military strike on alleged drug traffickers off the coast of Venezuela. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth posting to his X account he ordered what he describes as a lethal kinetic strike on an affiliated narco-trafficking boat with a designated terrorist organization. He also posted a video of the strike, which showed a small vessel exploding. Here's Matt Rivers.
It follows the same MO, really, that we've been seeing from the administration when it comes to targeting these so-called go-fast boats, which we do know are the kind of boats that are used when we're talking about transnational drug shipments throughout Latin America. What we've seen from the Trump administration is a repeated willingness to go after these boats. We don't know the evidence they're using. They just say, we have evidence that this is definitely narco-terrorists on board. We have evidence that there are drugs on board. We don't know what that is. We're not getting a lot of clarity from the Trump administration about how they know this.
Hegseth said 4 people were killed in this blast today. Right now in Tennessee, with just 4 days until the 7th Congressional District Special Primary, President Trump is making his pick, endorsing Republican candidate Matt Van Epps. And that has prompted another Republican to exit the race, Lee Reeves, posting to social media saying, "I support the president, and if this is the call he has made, I will back him up." Early voting's already happened. The primary takes place Tuesday. The winner will advance to the special election on December 2nd. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Glencliff got a crash blocking the right 3 westbound lanes and the eastbound left lane of 24 westbound at Briley Parkway. In Goodlettsville, a crash 65 southbound approaching Long Hollow Pike, Talbot's Corner 65 southbound near Trinity Lane, and in Smyrna, rolling roadblock, right lane blocked right there at Sam Ridley Parkway. That's eastbound 24 at Sam Ridley Parkway. Back here, closer to downtown in the Belmont area, got a crash 440 eastbound at Hillsborough Pike. Right lane blocked on the south side, 40 westbound at Fessler's Lane. That's the latest traffic. I'm Ken Weaver.
Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy, and I absolutely love Grace Point Healthcare. Modern medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. It's the right way to do it, a direct pay format. And right now, I want to tell you an update on the basic Smart Care plan. Remember, folks, thanks to the big, beautiful bill, you sign up for the Smart Care plan, and you can pay for this through your HSA account. That's right. Your HSA account can take care of your Smart Care plan, the monthly cost of that, at Grace Point Healthcare. Pricing is as follows: $99 a month for adults, $79 a month for children, or you can sign up for the family plan and receive 10% off for each additional family member after the first additional enrollee. Ask them about all of these things when you make the call that so many have made to Grace Point Healthcare at 599-6868, 599-6868. Located in the heart of Franklin and worth the drive from anywhere, Grace Point Healthcare truly does deliver on their promises, and you don't have to be beholden to the insurance company to get quality care. Frankly, I would encourage them for anyone, but right now, this is the time of year where kids are going in for sports physicals, and you can get one for $99. If you're traveling internationally, you can get a $150 travel visit. Grace Point is a complete international travel immunization clinic. That's right, $150, and they'll take care of all of it for you at Grace Point Healthcare. Once again, Grace Point Healthcare, modern medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. So owner Aaron Stokes of Eurofix wants me to tell you this quote. Now, I'm telling you, he's doing this to me to try to screw me up. But here, I'm going to do the quote for you because Aaron Stokes lives by this, right? Do all the good you can by all the means you can and all the ways you can and all the places you can at all the times you can to all the people you can for as long as you can. Huh? That's what Aaron Stokes does. That's how he lives his life and operates his business for over a quarter century. Friends, Eurofix repairs European vehicles at below dealer prices. It's what sets Eurofix apart. Not just the price, but the deep commitment to quality that keeps you off the tow truck and keeps you coming back. Eurofix has clean, welcoming shops where you can actually sit down. They have a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection, so you know exactly what's wrong with your vehicle before they get going on it. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year, 36,000-mile nationwide warranty on all repair work performed, plus a rental car available with every appointment. 5 separate locations: Nashville, Franklin, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and Mount Juliet. 844-EUROFIX, 844-EUROFIX, or online at myEurofix.com.
Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith. I was texting back and forth with the indomitable Dan Mandis about the 7th congressional race, and he asked an interesting question. Basically, is the Trump endorsement a big deal? Yes, Dan knows that it's a big deal broadly, but he was asking kind of what I thought. I don't really care about political endorsements. I don't look around and say, is politician X, Y, and Z doing it? But, asterisk, I get paid to pay attention to politics for my columns, for talking to you guys. So I am what folks would refer to as like a high information voter. I have the time and bandwidth to like look at the different things, check out the websites, like learn about policies, write a column about how I feel. So I don't really need someone to tell me how to vote. However, Trump's endorsement for a lot, and I'd probably say at least 70% of the GOP base is enough to get them to vote for a candidate. If they were going to go show up and vote and Trump has endorsed a candidate in the primary, they're Trump voters and they say, he said this is his guy. That's good enough for me. And that's why it's a huge deal, is of the voters that are going to vote and show up, a lot of them are going to use Trump proxy. I would kind of rank it in this order. Trump's is massive. A distant second is Governor Lee, and then a radically distant third would be Mark Green. And I think there's a lot of folks who, between Lee and Trump, you're covering 98% of the Republican base. If I ask you in the audience, do you like either Lee or Trump? Almost all of you who are Republican would say yes to at least one of them. And I think that gives Van Epps a real inside track here that I just don't think anybody can overcome. The truth is there's just not any time. And that screws it up. I don't think that's going to change. So mine in order, I'll get this prediction out of here and you can tell me where I'm wrong. You can laugh at me when the election results come in. Van Epps, probably high 30s, if I had to guess, in terms of percentage of the turnout. Jody Barrett is probably, he's going to get a nice chunk. I think he's number 2. I think Gino Bolso is probably 3. And Jackson, what was the name of the young man who Clemson student body president?
Mason Foley.
Mason Foley. So I said Crowley, and I apologize. Mason Foley. He seems like a very interesting young sort of up-and-comer who everyone who's talked to him likes him. Nobody knows who he is. So I think the rest of the field kind of splits up kind of the scraps. But I think since Reeves is out, I think it's Van Epps, Barrett, and Bolso in that order. And it will not be a large turnout. And because the endorsement, Sandra said, you said the sext line the other time. Yes, the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. I've been working really hard, folks. I'm probably like a lot of you. I'm tired. Fall breaks next week. I'm going to get to hang out with my boys a little bit. My wife, very, very excited about that. But I appreciate 6073 saying, hey, Cam, who is Crowley? I don't know. I have a neighbor by the last name of Crowley That's probably why I said it. It is Foley. Like,
My brother-in-law's name.
no, Axel Foley, Beverly Hills Cop. Different, but also another Foley. The question of the day, the two that I asked, one, who's the best high school football team in Tennessee? I looked at Max Preps, and this is what Max Preps said are the top 10. Baylor, McCallie, Brentwood Academy, Nashville Christian, Oakland, Ravenwood, Alcoa, Page, Innsworth. I think that's pretty impressive for the listening area.
Baylor and McCallie play this week in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's a big deal. Two pretty elite schools. So they're both in the Chattanooga area, right?
Yes, and Peyton Manning's kid's on Baylor.
Oh, cool. Brentwood Academy. I went to Brentwood Academy, class of 2000. Awesome. They're number 3. Nashville Christian, they're in the area. Oakland and Murfreesboro, Ravenwood and Brentwood, Page and Franklin, Innsworth. I mean, so of the top 10 schools, and I should say Battleground Academy's 10, so that's in the area too. We got some good football in Middle Tennessee. I like that. Very excited. Want to know what you think on that. Going also to worst jobs. Let's see what else you got on the Super Talk text line. Stomping corn silage blown into a silo. That sounds awful. Silage down your shirt and britches. This was 8 hours with an hour break for a huge farm. Yeah, that sounds rough. Every young kid should work on a farm. And I say that lovingly because it will help you realize that you may not want to work on a farm and you should probably take your schoolwork seriously. And that's not to say that farmers don't. A lot of farmers are academically studious. To run a farm, you got to not only work hard, but you got to understand your business margins. You got to understand your input costs, all that stuff. But it is hard work. There is no other way to cut it. I've never worked on a farm that I said, oh, this is easy. And I've had family in farming. I've worked on farms. And if you want to talk about somebody I respect, it's farmers. But I think the best thing is to work on a farm. And if you can hack that, you can hack anything. It's kind of like wrestling. If you can go out for wrestling and survive, then you can kind of do most athletics. If you can go out and you can farm and you can survive, you can handle pretty much anything. So I respect that. What other jobs? There's some stuff about mules. That's weird. One of my worst jobs was as a gum boy at Wrigley Gum Company in Chicago. Gum would come down on a small little pallet about the size of a sheet of paper, but about 50 sheets thick of gum. There was sugar between each sheet. And I would have to take it off the little pallet and deliver to the ladies who were running the machines that would slice up and put their gum into packages at the end of the day. I would have a sticky feeling through my work uniform going home on the bus because of all the fine powdered sugar, but it was an awesome company to work for. That's what I like to see is those companies where it's a tough job, it is brutal, but you really like the company. I worked at the Kroger in Brentwood for 5 seconds. I had a job there, and I was thinking, well, I'm just going to get a job. So I went in, they hired me, and I was bagging groceries, and it was beep, beep, beep. And I'm like, man, this is starting to get to me. I think I'm going to crack up. And then I asked a very important question that I should have asked on the front end, but I was a little afraid. I said, how much am I getting paid? And they informed me $5.35 an hour, and I decided that was not the job for me. So I respectfully retired after a very short tenure at the Kroger in Brentwood. The beeping got to me in ways I can barely describe. I mean, it was that much. 6063 says, if you go into a career field you're passionate about and enjoy, work won't feel so much like work. I think that's true. Tim says, farmers are among the smartest people you'll meet. I like that. Working tobacco was rough, but I'd do it any day over Lowe's. waiting tables at a catfish restaurant, detasseling corn. That sounds rough. 1604 says, hauling hay while hungover is the worst job I ever had. I want to be real clear. I don't think the hungover part was an integral piece of the job. It would be really bad with all that heat and dust, but I don't think that the hungover part was there. Worked on a kill floor for pigs. Ooh, that sounds like a rough one. We got to take a break. I need y'all to think of questions for Takuma Roebuck. He is the opinion editor for the Tennessean. He's going to come join us. This helps me out a lot because I want him to hear from you what you want to read about, what you want to look for in an opinion section. I get it. People complain all the time and say, well, the Tennessee is left of center. It's not represented. I want him to hear it straight from you, not from me. And feel free to ask him some questions. So be thinking about the questions that you want to ask. Put them in the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986, and we'll talk to him in the 4 o'clock hour. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
You know, I'll come to your pity party and I'll bring some spices from Savory Spice. How about that? Savory Spice is your one-stop shop for all things spice and seasoning and salt and pepper and just anything you can imagine that will liven up food in the kitchen. They've got it at Savory Spice. They've got mixes. They've got blends. Man, that taco seasoning, man, I don't know what they're doing, but it's really, really good. They've got Mexican spices. They've got international flavors. They've got something for every dish that you're cooking up in the kitchen. And if you're on the grill this holiday, if you're manning the grill for Labor Day, it's time to get to Savory Spice over the weekend and grab some deliciousness for the chops, deliciousness for chicken or for the burgers or whatever you happen to put on the grill, because they've got something for every taste. They've got something for you, the freshest of the fresh at Savory Spice. I love to say that they have something for every taste, and they have something for the cook in your life. Go to Savory Spice just off the square in Franklin. Tell them Holly, David, and the rest of the crew that Matt Murphy sent you, right next to Gray's Pharmacy, the one and only Savory Spice. Oh, folks, Matt Murphy for Cover Nash. Let's talk for a moment about your health insurance. I know. Wait, don't go anywhere. Get back over here. Get back to your radio. Let's talk. Because Shane Ring can save you money, or Shane Ring can get you the coverage that you deserve, or most often, both, right? Most people, if you have health insurance, you don't think about whether or not you're overspending. If you have health insurance, you don't really recognize where you might have some gaps in your coverage. Shane Ring is here to go over your insurance plan comprehensively to make sure that you're getting the most for your money and to make sure that you're covered in the unlikely and unfortunate event that you would need something like a hospital stay or surgery, for example. He can help you out with a PPO plan that's nationwide. You go to any doctor anywhere in the United States of America, and it's only a $250 deductible and flat copays after the deductible. It's possible with Shane Ring and Cover Nash. Shane is your go-to concierge for all things health insurance. And remember, Shane works for you. He does not work for any insurance company whatsoever. He shops the entire marketplace for you and finds the right plan for you. You can meet him in Brentwood or talk to him on the phone, 615-465-0023, 465-0023, or online, covernash.com.
Breaking news is coming out of a fire hose right now. Sean Diddy just sentenced. Supreme Court just ruled on temporary protected status for Venezuelan immigrants. And President Trump just reshaped the 7th Congressional District special election race. All these stories and more at 4. And believe me, there's more on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, we are on short time right now. We got a couple minutes before the top of the hour break. I'm very excited that y'all are joining me today. Tom, I see you on the line. We are going to have to take a break before I can get to you. And Takuma Roback is coming to talk to us from the Tennessean, and I've already got some of y'all's questions. Keep them coming in because I want him to understand this audience and what interests you. Because the truth is, I've heard from a lot of y'all that you used to have the Tennessean, you used to enjoy it, and you don't anymore. And, you know, several of you have said, hey, I've started to read your stuff, and that's some of the first consistent conservative things that have been there in a while. I appreciate that. We want him as the opinion editor to know what's going on, what you're interested in. I've heard from a number of y'all, election coverage matters to you from the reporting side. I'm an opinion columnist. I can tell you what I think about the race. The reporting that just tells you a little bit about the candidates, their positions, their voting record is something several of y'all have mentioned. Please let me know what you want to talk to him about. I'm very, very excited. And for those of y'all, many of y'all knew David Plazas, and he's at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution now. And so this is David's replacement at the Tennessean, and I'm excited to introduce him to you guys. The worst job category goes on. I'm very impressed by this. Tony has a winner here. I worked for a local textile mill in a yarn prep, feeding 16 machines below a catwalk. I had to fill 16 hoppers with raw cotton. By the time you got to 15 and 16, 1 and 2 were empty. When an operator below threw a wrench at me, I threw it back at him and quit after 4 hours. All that for $3.85 an hour. You got me beat it from $5.35. $3.85 for that. Whew, Tony, that sounds really rough. Let me see, there's a couple more here. When I was 18, I read electric meters, really demanding job and great pay. A convoy commander in Afghanistan. Yeah, Larry, that sounds tough. Delivering 500 cases of 16-ounce tall Pepsi bottles to Belgrade, Florida. Okay. packing frozen strudels at Pillsbury. Did it one day. Never went back.
I bet that smell
I bet
heavenly.
Hey, I've been to some food processing. I saw Red Baron pizza cut with a water jet. When I worked in Congress, I got to go tour a lot of these facilities, and I checked, I was fascinated by lean manufacturing, and I wanted to see how they did it. And oh my goodness, Red Baron Pizza was I believe in Kentucky, and they have a water jet that will cut off your finger, and they use it to cut frozen pizza slices.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost as thin as a thread, but man, it is. That's the reason those frozen single slices of pizza have such sharp edges. They don't roll it with a normal cutter.
Yeah.
It's a water jet. And it's
Interesting.
fascinating stuff. I am thrilled. Well, we're going to go get Tacoma. We're going to talk to him in the next hour. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Four o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Chuck Severson. Prison for Sean Diddy Combs, 4 years and 2 months. That's the sentence given by the judge in federal court in New York and Manhattan. Combs was found guilty of taking someone across state lines for purposes of prostitution. Before sentencing, Combs spoke to the judge. And outside court, ABC's Aaron Katursky listened.
Sean Combs himself, once larger than life, was left begging for mercy, standing at the defense table, telling the judge that he's a changed man, apologizing for his behavior. But that request for a lenient sentence of time served was rejected by the judge.
Now, the judge then spoke commending Combs for good works, but added, a history of good works cannot wash away the record in this case. The conduct occurred over a decade with tremendous frequency across that time period. Combs said, you paid for and organized these acts. This is ABC News.
And the Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to revoke temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants, clearing the way for their potential deportation. This emergency order pauses a lower court ruling that had blocked the administration's action while legal challenges proceeded. Elsewhere.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. Hamas has responded to the U.S. proposal of a Gaza ceasefire deal laid out last week when President Trump hosted Israel's prime minister at the White House. Hamas reportedly agreeing to parts of the 20-point ceasefire plan, including the release of hostages, but with conditions, and that would require negotiations. ABC's Ian Pannell is in Tel Aviv.
We have to wait for the American team to interpret this. To see what details there are. It looks like an attempt to delay the process. It's not an emphatic yes, and it's not an emphatic no. Overall, it appears positive, but frankly, there's more that we don't know than we do know.
Hamas's political leader telling news outlet Al Jazeera that getting all the hostages exchanged in 72 hours will be hard to do. That proposal also requires Hamas to disarm. In a social media post earlier, President Trump gave a Sunday deadline for Hamas to agree or all hell would break loose. This is ABC News.
Federal government shutdown continues through the weekend with the Senate's failure to advance a House-passed funding bill that would end it today. And here in Tennessee, just 4 days remaining until the 7th Congressional District special primary, and President Trump has made his endorsement backing Republican candidate Matt Van Epps. Trump announced his complete and total endorsement of Van Epps on Truth Social, calling him an America First patriot and praising his military service and conservative credentials. The endorsement already reshaping the race. State Rep Lee Reeves, one of Van Epps' top Republican rivals, announcing his withdrawal shortly after the endorsement. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Glencliff, we've got a crash that is blocking both east and westbound lanes of 24 at Briley Parkway South. It's blocking the right 3 westbound lanes and the eastbound left lane of 24 there at Briley Parkway South. Over on the East Bank, a crash, 24 westbound at Shelby Avenue. South side, right lane blocked by a crash, 40 westbound near Fessler's Lane. Over by Belmont, a crash, 440 eastbound at Hillsborough Pike, 21st Avenue. Goodlettsville, a crash, 65 southbound approaching Long Hollow Pike. And in Talbot's Corner, 65 southbound near Trinity Lane, I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Got a special treat for you this hour. Takuma Roback, who is the opinion editor for the Tennessean, has graciously decided to join me. And we are, I let him know the first question was, what's the worst job that you've ever had? And you guys have stacked the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986, with questions. And I want y'all to keep them coming because the reason Takuma is here is because he cares about this audience. He wants to know what you want to hear about, what's interesting to you. I get it. Let's just address the elephant in the room. Several of y'all have said, well, the Tennessean has lurched to the left and it is not reflective of the views in Tennessee. Have you ever heard that before, Takuma?
I've heard that, yes.
He has heard that. And I will tell you, one of the things that's been encouraging to me is Takuma has taken the columns that I file and has read them and made them better. He has asked me questions. He's asked for clarification so that when the product gets to you guys, it's as good as it can be. So with that, I welcome you, Takuma. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, what is the worst job you've ever had?
There are a couple. One that comes to mind was I was living in Atlanta, graduated from high school in Atlanta, and I was looking for a summer job. Went through a temp agency, and they sent me to an apartment complex that was about 4 or 5 football fields. And my job was to take my garbage picker and go around the entire complex. And this was in like June, and in Atlanta it was like 95 degrees. Long story short, I quit I quit that same day, got a job at Chick-fil-A like a week later.
Okay. Jesus Chicken saves, and it saved Takuma. So
Indeed.
I appreciate that. So let's, if you don't mind, let's jump a little bit into your background.
Yeah.
Because I think for a more conservative audience, it is the Chicago Defender. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
They see that and they're like, hey, wait a minute. Chicago, that doesn't sound like very Tennessee. Help me understand a little bit about your background, the projects that you've engaged kind of over your career so these guys can get to know you a little bit.
So my first internship was about 30-something years ago with the South Florida Sun Sentinel. My first job was at the Times Herald Record in upstate New York, Orange County, where I basically covered city government and changed the water bottles. It was like, real pay your dues time. And then I went to the Tennessean in my second job 20 years ago, where I covered music and entertainment. But in my career, whether it's been the classroom or journalism, it's for me all about being able to tell stories that people care about, being able to tap into empathy. You know, I love people, and that's really at the heart of what I do. The Defender was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me because that's a 120-year-old Black publication that's been around since 1905. In fact, the birthday was May 5th, 1905. And so it has a very, it's regarded as a legendary publication in the Black press. So it was a dream job for me because it allowed me to kind of refine my skills as a manager and as a people person and as a representative of a publication.
Well, so obviously that is a very different publication than the Tennessean.
Absolutely.
And Chicago is a very different place from Tennessee. And I think this is some of the concern that folks who are more conservative have had about what I'd call the legacy media, right? They are, well, wait a minute. You know, we're here, you know, kind of where Tennessee is politically. What is your approach to serving an audience that is very different from your prior stop? And how can we connect during this time where politically everything's so polarized? I mean, people hear about your background, where you're coming from. They're not even thinking about you were previously with the Tennessean. They're coming from Chicago. I don't know if we can trust this guy.
He's a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I understand those concerns. I mean, I think for me, at the core of it was what I told you about my formative years as a journalist. The best ones are ones that are responsive to community. And you have to listen, and you don't know everything. And I'm here to tell your audience and anyone, I don't know everything, and I want to learn. Part of the mandate of my job is to be a lifelong learner. And if you can bridge that with compassion, or as my predecessor, David Plazas, had modeled for me that I love to follow, is civility. How can we have these hard conversations that are respectful? You know, how do we bring everyone together in a room at the Tennessean? And you're a vital part of that, Cameron, which is why I treasure what you bring so much.
Well, so let's talk about that for a minute, because it was really important for me to have you on, because I kind of want to bring the worlds together a little bit, because we are in such a polarized time. I mean, we are in the middle of a shutdown right now, and both sides are convinced that the problem is the other side.
Yeah.
How do you stop the, hey, I'm branding you as the enemy, to, hey, we disagree, but I want to learn more? Like, help me understand how we start there.
I think there's a proliferation of kind of the partisan talking points that we can get at any corner of the media right now, whether it's X, whether it's, Newsmax, MSNBC, Fox. There's a lot of clamor. But I think what we have to, what our unique value proposition, if you will, is, I think in this position with the Tennessean, and I think what David Plazas had modeled, was getting kind of above the din of this, like, these partisan, what's going on in the community? How has the shutdown affected us locally? What are some of the pain points that people share? Above all the din that's going on, what's really going on the ground, I think is more vital and difference making to our audiences, and I think illuminating as well.
So the reason I'm smiling is because I'm looking at the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986, and the 4460 says, can you please have him say what a wonderful world? Because he sounds like Louis Armstrong.
I've heard that before. I've gotten the Louis Armstrong.
Well, I think the real issue here is, and what I've heard repeatedly, is we want to know more. So the lines between the reporting function and the editorial and commentary function have been really blurred. That's just the current state of media. And what a lot of this audience is saying is, okay, let's look at the 7th congressional race. There's a lot going on. I just put out a piece on that. Is been some reporting, but not a ton of robust coverage around that race. Where does the Tennessean have a role in that? What is in your mind the best way to engage the political space right now to get information to the voters?
Yeah, so I think what the Tennessean has done a great job of is explaining who are the candidates in the the 7th congressional race. I think there are 19 total, 11 Republican candidates. There are 4 independents, and I think there are 5 Democrats. I might be wrong, or 4 Democrats. I might be wrong about that.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, but 19 total. So we've had explainers about that. There was a piece that talked about, that came out a couple of days ago, and about the outside funding that's come into that race as well. So we've had that kind of coverage. But I think what we got to continue to do, and I think, and I hate to sound like the cheesy journalism 101 guy, but really, we want to hear from you as well, because, and I'm talking to your super chat people. As much as we put out information, I think the vitality of a paper relies on the feedback that we get from you guys, that you get to my inbox. troback@gannett.com is my email. Because we want to hear from you. You are a stakeholder in this exchange of information. And I want to emphasize that, because what are we missing in our coverage, right? We don't know everything all the time. And so it's vital for us to hear from the constituents in that district and how they're impacted. And it's a vast district, of course.
Yeah, so I think that, and I want to just hit the nail on the head here repeatedly, because this is what I'm seeing is, they're saying we see hard liberal bias.
Yeah.
And that, I've heard that a lot. That and look, let's be honest about that. I mean, a lot of the folks that are at the Tennessean, and frankly, who write for major publications, are left of center. Obviously, I'm not, and I'm one person there. But how do we get those voices in? What can the audience do? Are you saying emailing you, feedback, letting you know is
letters
a way
to the editor,
balance that?
Yeah, and because we actively seek balance. I know that my voice is left of center, but I'm, again, really happy for your contributions, because you balance us out and you give us a perspective that's much needed, that we value.
And Takuma has not locked me in the closet over there. He is. I want to be real clear. I am not blinking at you, those of you that can see me on video, and signaling that please help. Like, it's fine. And I think this is important to say. When I send you a column that I write and you edit it, how many times have we had an exchange where it was I need you to change the substance of what you write? None. And so I want y'all to know that my viewpoint and my voice is not restricted in terms of the content. It is, hey, let's figure out the right way to say this in terms of communication, or this is not clear. But the substance, you leave alone as an editor.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that everybody needs to know, because a lot of times it's a fun joke to suggest that, I'm a captive over there. I'm not. And as different as our politics may be, there is a respect for viewpoint, and I think that's really critical in media. Talk to me a little bit. We've got basically a minute before we need to take a break. With Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? Big deal across the whole country, specifically in conservative land, saying, wait, and the mindset was, man, if they do this to a political pundit, they I don't know who the they is, they could do it to any of us. And how do folks who don't share Charlie Kirk's views look at that event and say, okay, we're not going to agree, but, and then kind of fill in the blank for me?
Yeah, and so we did an editorial about that. One, violence has no place in a democracy, and free speech is something that ought to be protected and upheld no matter how much you disagree with someone. That should have never happened. That was tragic and heartbreaking, and I feel for his family. That did not have to happen. That shouldn't have happened. And I want justice to be brought swiftly against the accused over that.
Sure. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to get to some more of y'all's questions, and let me know what you think and what you want to ask Takuma. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Here, I want this to stick in your head, too, and it's about efficient heating and cooling. And my friend Jeff Eddy, I like to tell you, I like to rhyme it. If your AC's not ready, call Jeff Eddy. If your AC's not ready, call Jeff Eddy. And Efficient Heating and Cooling. Efficient Heating and Cooling is a small company with big service and big results in mind. If you're trying to make a decision to repair or replace your unit, you need Jeff Eddy in your life because he's never, ever, 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 ever going to tell you to replace if it's not absolutely necessary. Now, sadly, some companies default to replacement. They make more money that way. It's easier that way. But Jeff doesn't do that. He understands that you're on a budget. He understands that you need to get maximum life out of that AC unit, and he will help you do just that. The best way, I should add, to head off costly repairs is to give yourself regular maintenance on your unit, which is why I'll be talking to you about your heater come September. Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee. They got great value. They don't charge you overtime at nights or weekends. Friends, it's all about getting you back up and running for the least amount of money possible. EfficientHVAC.net. By the way, they're an Elite Pro partner with Rheem when the time to replace comes. 615-784-4424, 784-4424.
Sean Diddy Combs begged the judge for mercy. We've got a response from Hamas to President Trump's peace plan, and President Trump has reshaped the 7th Congressional District special election. We'll tell you about it at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I've got Takuma Roback, who is the opinion editor at the Tennessean, and my colleague and somebody who has done a previous stint at the Tennessean, now comes in with big shoes to fill, but a game plan of engagement that I think is going to be great. Y'all have asked some great questions. I want to get to those very quickly. Sean asked, and I think this is a great one. He said, Cameron, I have a question for both of you. Have either one of you changed your mind on something due to the argument of the other side? If so, what? Takuma, if you have one, you can go, or I can go while you're still thinking.
So there was an article, a column that I wrote recently about the National Guard in Memphis. And when I started that research, I was trying to figure out why that was necessary and what would be the better approach. And when you think about that, there's some people who believe like, well, why is the National Guard necessary at all? But in my research, when I thought about, when I found out what some of the best practices are in individual policing, having law enforcement familiar with the terrain that they are, they're paid to monitor and to patrol. Local police empowerment is probably the best move. Community policing and being able to find research that really explain the ways that was a better approach really empowered that column. I think it was a learning lesson for me, because I think that there's this message out here where there are people who either say, have the National Guard of Memphis or defund the police, and there's not enough talk about what's the most common sense approach.
Right.
And that column, I think I was able to hopefully highlight that approach, that middle ground that will assure responsive community policing over maybe some overreach concerns that people have.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting one, because the polar opposites there could not be any further apart. It's defund the police or National Guard.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's a good one. Mine was like an existential shift. I had long taken the position that basically racial considerations in policy, particularly in law enforcement, shouldn't happen. That this should not be, we should be a race-blind society, and, the law is the law, and we just move forward. And what happened to me is we got into therapeutic fostering. My first bonus son was a black teenager. And twice I was between him and a police officer with his hand on his gun. And I was saying, and it's at night, this is a young man who had a lot of trauma, a lot of things not go right in his life, and got really angry. Now, he wasn't hurting anybody, but he's real loud. And people called the police because they heard somebody disturbed. And it was a crystallizing moment for me, because I realized that the law enforcement experience was different for different people. And I'm not suggesting that any of the officers necessarily did anything wrong, but I thought about how I would approach it and how it would have been handled differently for my bio sons. And I realized there was a difference. And it wasn't that, now we have to have race as the top consideration, but it was, hey, we're not starting from like a neutral space here. And we need to acknowledge that and say, hey, there are different experiences. I had people who had told me, hey, well, you know what? Now that you have a young black man in your house, you got to explain to him about the police. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said, no, I don't think you understand. The way you and your boys think of the police is very different than the experience of people that don't share your skin color. And that became very true for me very quickly. And so some of those arguments that I had basically turned a deaf ear to, that said, okay, like, I hear what you're saying, but, racial profiling and stuff like that is bad. And I said, well, hey, none of this has any place. And I still would like to get to race blind, but we don't start there. And that was one that did shift for me. Another comment that was excellent was saying you're not a captive is a thing a captive would say. So I don't know how to get around that one, but I can assure you that I do have freedom. We've got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Sean Diddy Combs has just been sentenced to more than 4 years in prison. The sentence following his conviction in July on 2 counts of transporting women across state lines for prostitution. A response from Hamas to President Trump's peace plan. Hamas saying in a statement it would release all remaining hostages if Israel withdraws from Gaza and, quote, proper field conditions are met. The statement also saying Hamas is ready to negotiate through mediators to discuss details. President Trump reportedly telling Israel to stop the bombing in Gaza, that he thinks Hamas is serious. And the Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to revoke temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants, which could mean deportation. Meanwhile, Apple has removed an app that uses crowdsourcing to flag sighting of U.S. immigration agents. Here's Alex Stone.
Apple's move comes after pressure from the Trump administration to remove the app called Ice Block, a free iPhone app that lets users report and monitor ICE activity. The app is no longer available for download. Before it was taken down, its developers said it had over 1 million users. In September, officials said a gunman who opened fire on an ICE building in Dallas had used apps to track the presence of ICE agents. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Well, the federal government shutdown will continue through the weekend. The Senate's failure today to advance a House-passed funding bill that would end it. And right now in Tennessee, just 4 days until the 7th Congressional District special primary. President Trump has made his endorsement backing Republican candidate Matt Van Epps. The endorsement already reshaping the race with State Representative Lee Reeves, one of Van Epps' top Republican rivals, announcing his withdrawal shortly after the endorsement. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. In Madison, got an injury crash, 65 northbound at Old Hickory Boulevard, and over on the East Bank, 24 westbound at Shelby Avenue. Got a crash there. South Side, police reporting a crash, 40 westbound near Fessler's Lane. Belmont, we got a crash reported by police, 65 southbound at Wedgwood. And in Goodlettsville, police say there's a crash, 65 southbound approaching Long Hollow Pike. Glencliff, TDOT says there's a wreck, 24 westbound at Briley Parkway South. And over by the airport, looks like police working a crash, Murfreesboro Pike at Dell Parkway. I'm Ken Weaver.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to talk about my buddies at the Glock store. Last week, we talked about the AccuShoot LFX system being demoed at the Glock store. Dan Mandis went out to try it. I am so bummed that my week was so compacted that I was not able to get out there. I am bummed out. Dan Mandis loved it. Well, on Saturday, the capper for the week, AccuShoot LFX held their first international shooting competition, and the Glock store was one of 5 teams competing around the world. And I was not surprised that Mitch Young has personally trained me. He is the range and training manager of the Glock store. And how about that? He can train you, too. So Mitch is my trainer. He can be your trainer at the Glock store when you go to shoot270.com. He won first place. First place around the globe. Now, I've seen him shoot, and that's no surprise to me. What did surprise me is that his teammate, Dave, who just started training with Mitch and his crew a little over a month ago, came in 3rd worldwide. So not only is Mitch as accurate as you can find in the world, he's training his folks to be as accurate as him. Now, he did go on to the Glock store to shoot drills on the AccuShoot LFX on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but still, he's been in training for a month and coming in third worldwide. That's pretty cool. He was shooting a Glock 47 with some Glock recommended performance parts, and 1 month of Glock store training and third in a worldwide competition is pretty darn cool. That's the type of training that you get at the one and only Glock store, the incomparable Shoot270.com indoor range. And it's why I recommend them. It is proof in the pudding, as my grandma used to say. Minutes away from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Glock store.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. Thank you all for spending your afternoon with me. I have Takuma Roback here as the opinion editor for the Tennessean, and he has graciously given us some of his time. Y'all have asked some great questions, so keep them coming on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. So, Takuma, my question for you right now, and I want to get into a couple things before we lose you, how do we actually change policy and address those policy conversations rather than just engaging in sort of navel gazing? How do we get people together? And then the question I'd like to talk about first is, tell me one thing that President Donald Trump, in your mind, has gotten right and makes sense. And then tell me one of the things that you're like, I think he's wrong on this.
I agree with the sentiment of America First in the sense of policies that could support the struggling American family, because that cuts across so many lines. The pace of inflation has not kept up with salaries. It has not kept up with the cost of housing. And I think we are all feeling that pain throughout the region. And so him giving voice to that, I think, is encouraging.
Yeah.
Certainly, because the need is profound, right? In terms of what I disagree with, and this gets back to the space we're trying to create at the Tennessean, that we're trying to continue off, again, the legacy of David Plazas, I'm stepping into some huge shoes, and I have conversations with him from time to time. But when we talk about civility, the dehumanization has no place in that. And so some of what people could perceive as dehumanizing and some of his rhetoric is just stuff that I just can't agree with.
Sure. And let's press on that a little bit, because I think I see this, the folks on the right call it Trump derangement syndrome. They're like, hey, look, so what? I mean, he's got mean tweets. The latest one was the sombrero thing. I don't even know what that's about, but, sombrero on Hakeem Jeffries and other Democrats who he's accusing of shutting down the government. These kind of antics have been kind of, I don't want to say normalized, but I don't know another word. Let me back up. How is that, other than just, hey, he's a beanie, he's a bad guy in that respect, how does that really matter on the policy stage to the ultimate, hey, these are policies that are there or not there?
Okay, so, and I'm sorry, but I have to take it back to this concept of creating space for people with different viewpoints, right? And I think that a delineation would need to be made, as civility is a starting point, right?
Sure.
And then after that, you have to have the tough conversations. And then after the tough conversations, you want to give acknowledgement or consideration to the other side that you may not agree with. The goal is when you step out of that meeting, you're left, you may not agree leaving that meeting, but you may have been touched by something you may not have considered before. You may find commonalities with the other person. And I think when you engage in dehumanizing language, regardless of who you are, it basically short circuits that opportunity for deeper understanding, for free speech that respects, but also, where there's no suspicion of people being silenced because of their views, right? Because, I mean, to me, when you dehumanize, it cuts off so many bridges that can be built.
And I agree with that. And I agree with that. The challenge that, and this is very pointed, and I've challenged David on this, and I think it's something that has to be addressed. The reality is that that's the aspiration, right?
That's the aspiration.
That we are going to sit down and have a civil conversation, a back and forth, respect each other's humanity. I agreed. I think everybody wants to get there, okay?
Yeah.
The right, I mentioned, the sombreros and some other stuff that's been really bad. The left, the Nazis, the Hitlers, the fascists, right? So
the name calling.
Right. But this is reality. The reality is they're going to call Trump and folks on the right these type of things that's heated rhetoric that people pick up on, and it's like, hey, don't we kill Nazis? Like, isn't that what we do? And then folks on the right say, well, communist, socialist, you hate America. You want to, you are the enemy. That's the rhetoric. How do we, I don't know that we can tone it down. So what do we do?
Yeah. And when we talk about those sides and the rhetoric, it honestly, Cameron, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good at all. And I don't know. Like, for me to do this job effectively, I've got to go out and meet people. I've got to go out and engage in dialogue. I have to go out and listen, because I don't know everything. And, we had talked, how do we get from having these conversations in our heads to actually writing stuff that people and producing stuff that people care about? Well, that's the other part of my job, which is the community engagement part, which David did so well, going out to communities of people who may have different viewpoints than you, right? Yeah. Going out and finding out what is going on the ground, because that's going to be the difference making. I can't, the meme making and the name calling, man. It's just it's a lot. For me, it's a bad vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I very much do. And I think what's kind of interesting, and what I hear you saying, is you've got to go out from Nashville into the readership around Nashville. And, basically, if Tennessee is the whole country, what we would call the flyover country, what I feel like I have to do a lot is I got to come into Nashville, because the sort of Nashville nucleus is very left of center. That's something that's, I hear that, I see that. And so I need to find rooms and audiences in Nashville who say, okay, he's a conservative. He wants to enforce the immigration laws. He wants to rein in government, rein in bureaucracy, get spending under control. I'm not sure, might be a fascist. We need to sit down and talk to him. That's the rooms I'm trying to get into. And I hear you saying, hey, I'm here. I need to get into some of these other rooms. And I think, folks, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's an invitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to go and meet folks, talk to them, see what they believe, see what they have. And this is a good comment. 8727 says the hateful rhetoric just closes everyone's ears.
Yeah.
No one can talk after that, and there's no understanding.
Yeah.
And that's what I want you to see is Takuma came here today not with an agenda, not to try to say, all you guys are wrong, but to say, hey, I don't necessarily share some of the viewpoints of the right, but I want to hear from you because that's my job. And so I want you guys to understand that. Do you think that we can have some of those convenings, have some of those meetings, and that we can have a productive impact in Tennessee? Or is it just best we can do is, maybe some sit downs, but we're not really going to impact anything because everybody's already made up their minds?
Well, I think that the impact is secondary. I think you have to meet with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's all about. If I go in, I want to make an impact, yeah. I think that's when the ego gets involved.
Yeah.
Let's just listen. Let's just talk. Let's dialogue. Let's listen. Because again, I think for a journalist to do a really great job, they have to go out into the community. You can't stay in the newsroom. You can't stay in your thoughts, your perceptions. You can't stay within some of the things you believe. You have to go out and engage with the community. That's the difference. And so I think the conversations start there.
How do we, the one thing that's come up, several folks on, this is kind of funny, the SuperTalk text line, 615-737-9986, have said, well, the left can't meme. And what I mean by, what they mean by that is, and he also said the left can't meme and forgot how to laugh.
Okay.
Right? And I think the point there is, well, what's the role in humor in all this? Like, we are so serious about so much that we can't have some of these conversations because the level of sensitivity is through the roof. How do we bring back, like, okay, well, some jokes, stuff that's racist and going after, like, people that can't protect themselves, that kind of humor, we're not going to do that. But it's kind of turned into no humor. And how do we get, you say creating space, I think that's what humor does. How do we have a little room so that we can have some exchanges and kind of laugh at ourselves, kind of have some fun, versus everything is taken as a slight or a jab. Yeah. There's no sort of, even when Reagan was president, the Democrats and Republicans would kind of joke back and forth with each other. Trump tries to do that pretty frequently, and a lot of it just falls flat. I think some of that's because some of the things he says may not be funny. The other part is we have lost our sense of humor entirely. So how do we bring that back?
Well, I mean, again, when you talk about just the concept of convening and being civil, establishing guardrails, right? As you said, the dehumanization stuff, the racist stuff, that's out. But, it's a process. You can't force things either. But I think the first step you have to make is to be willing to listen and acknowledge, right? And then if there are jokes, if there's an ability to be congenial with each other, that's awesome. If we can rank on each other's, sports teams, football or whatever. Oh, haha, you're a Florida Gators fan, and they're terrible right now. And I'm speaking from real life because I am a Gators fan, and
that's tough, man.
It's really bad right now. Or, haha, you're, you got your hat on in a certain way, it looks funny, your outfit is off or something like that. Then if we can grow to that comfortability, that's fine. But I think first is to get out of our silos, I think, and just meet and not only just meet, but have it be purposeful discussions around key issues that are impacting us right now. As again, I get back to the economic situation that many of us working Americans are dealing with. That's really hard and tough right now.
So I think the humor matters so much to me, and I do think the ability to joke, like sometimes when I go into a room with more liberal folks, I'd say I was told there would be a Soviet breadline here, and initially they're like, oh, how dare he lead? And I'm like, well, you know what? Humor requires relational context. To your point, if you don't go and meet people and you don't know them, you can't joke with them because they don't have a shared experience. And that's the reason the football jokes are funny, right? Because we know kind of what those things are.
Right.
And I think that's good. Well, we have one more segment after this, and I want to ask you a couple more things. Like that's real important in a state like Tennessee. You told me you're a Gators fan. Want to talk a little sports and kind of see where your allegiances lie, and that way we can figure out if we can really get along. We got to take a break now.
Okay.
I'm Cameron Smith. This is Super Talk 99.7.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy for USS, United Structural Systems. USS is going to keep your home stable and dry, and they've been doing so since 1994. Our friends at USS are the best in the business when it comes to foundation repair, waterproofing repair, and making sure that your home is exactly as it should be. You know, typically homes are going to settle. That's a natural occurrence. But if the settling happens in such a way where it causes stair-step cracks in the masonry or mortar joints, or perhaps you've noticed a musty or moldy smell in the basement or crawl space. Maybe a door is sticking, a window is sticking. These are all signs of problems in your home, and it's a sign that you need to call USS, United Structural Systems. They guarantee their best at USS, and they've been keeping homes stable and dry since 1994, almost 30,000 satisfied customers. Call 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS, United Structural Systems. Friends, if you've not been to Genesis Diamonds in recent days, recent weeks, you need to stop in and see what they have done. It's pretty cool what's happening in Green Hills. Now, I love Cool Springs. Don't get me wrong. Cool Springs is great. But Green Hills, Genesis has totally reimagined a brand new state-of-the-art showroom. It is the most beautiful, most modern, and incredible jewelry showroom in the United States of America. Double the size of their old showroom, tons of new showcases, an artesian coffee bar. That's a very, very fancy word, artesian. Plus a relaxed and comfortable customer lounge. It is luxurious, it is warm, it is inviting, and it is for you. That's the bottom line. It's the jewelry showroom that sets new standards, and it's all about customer comfort and making sure that you are taken care of as you experience your diamond buying. There's also an entirely new section devoted to luxury pre-owned Rolex watches, which is pretty cool. Genesis now has one of the best Rolex collections in America. And I plan on, one of these days I'll buy, when Jackson Williams is doing his job at 100%, he'll get a nice pre-owned Rolex from Matt Murphy from Genesis Diamonds. That's right. 100%, Jackson. That's all I need. New showroom proves that customers come number one every step of the process at Genesis Diamonds. Check them out and pick Jackson out a nice Rolex when you go by. Don't forget, they're also open in Cool Springs, Green Hills, and Cool Springs. Genesis Diamonds, my jeweler.
President Trump says he thinks Hamas is serious about this ceasefire deal, and he's telling Israel to stop bombing Gaza. Got a full report coming up at 5 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to, I don't even know how many hours we're in. I guess it's the end of the second hour of the Matt Murphy Show. Takuma Roback, opinion editor for the Tennessean, has graciously given us the last hour of his time. And so the parting question here is, you said you're a Florida Gators fan. Mm-hmm. Do you think right now it's harder to be a Florida Gators fan or a Tennessee Titans fan?
Okay, that's tough.
And why?
Wow. Both are equally bad situations right now. When you talk about Florida right now, the head coach, I don't know. There are a lot of fans. A lot of us are clamoring for Lane right now at Ole Miss. The Titans situation is pretty bleak. You have the quarterback saying what he said last week.
That's the truth. You gonna tell him to lie?
It's rough. It's rough because I was here 20 years ago. The Titans were like, wow, like
amazing.
Among the Eddie George, Steve McNair, Frank Wycheck, Keith Bullock. I mean, there was just a movement.
So if you need a mean cup of coffee in Cool Springs at Just Love, Keith Bullock's there.
Is he?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
It's hilarious for me to walk in, and I will tell you, it's been such an example to my boys that he's back there washing dishes at the franchise. And I'm like, that was one of my heroes, man.
I have to go.
Yeah, man. Check it out.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your time. We'll have to do it again. Several folks say, hey, we'll get him back and let him debate Matt. Okay. I mean, we can set that up. We'll have a lot more fun going forward. Check the stuff out over at the Tennessean. Yes, Jason, I know Matt said no football talk, but I have the microphone. This is the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. Hamas responding to the U.S. proposal to end the war in Gaza, saying they agree to some of the 20 points in the plan, but there are conditions.
Hamas says in a statement it would release all remaining hostages if Israel withdraws from Gaza and, quote, proper field conditions are met. The statement says Hamas is ready to negotiate through mediators to talk details. President Trump said Monday he would give Israel his, quote, full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas if the group did not accept his plan to end the war in Gaza. President Trump this morning in a social media post gave Hamas until 6 p.m. Sunday to sign on to his plan, or else, he wrote, quote, all hell like no one has ever seen before will break out against Hamas.
ABC's Karen Travers. The White House in a statement says President Trump says he believes Hamas is ready for lasting peace. The president also calling on Israel to immediately stop the bombing in Gaza so they can get the hostages out safely and quickly. This is ABC News.
U.S. Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to revoke temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants, which could mean deportation. Meanwhile, Apple has removed an app that uses crowdsourcing to flag sighting of U.S. immigration agents.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Chuck Sievertson. Prison for Sean Diddy Combs, 4 years and 2 months. That's the sentence given by the judge in federal court in New York, in Manhattan, plus a year suspended and a fine of $500,000. Combs was found guilty of prostitution charges. Outside court, ABC's Aaron Katursky.
The judge said 11 years was unreasonable, but 4 years is just the right amount, the judge said, to send a message to Sean Combs, to victims of domestic violence, that their accounts will be taken seriously.
Combs spoke before sentencing, pleading for mercy, saying he's gotten sober and made positive contributions to the community. ABC News legal analyst Bernarda Villanona.
The judge sent a message that, yes, you have family, yes, you have people that love you, but Jane and Cassie were victims, and victims should be accounted for, and someone should speak for the victims and deter this type of conduct.
Bernarda Villalona. This is ABC News.
Yeah, with just 4 days to go before Tennessee's 7th District Special Primary, President Trump is making his pick, endorsing Republican Matt Von Epps. Trump praised Van Epps as an America First patriot with strong conservative values, the endorsement prompting State Rep Lee Reeves to exit the race, saying he supports the president's decision. And the federal government shutdown will continue through the weekend with the Senate's failure Friday to advance a House-passed funding bill that would end it. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. East Bank police say there's a crash 24 westbound after Ellington Parkway. Glencliff, a crash blocking the right 2 lanes, 40 eastbound after Spence Lane. Southside, an accident. TDOT says it's 40 westbound near Fessler's Lane. Then in Goodlettsville, police working a crash 65 southbound approaching Long Hollow Pike. In Antioch, got some police activity. Right lane blocked, 24 westbound near Haywood Lane. Then in Madison, an injury crash 65 northbound at Old Hickory Boulevard. And in Belmont, police reporting crash 65 southbound Wedgwood Avenue. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to all you wild ones, the haters and losers too. If you're wondering if I'm talking to you, I don't know. Do you really need to wonder? I'm Cameron Smith, filling in for Matt today. And before we do anything else, Takuma was awesome. I'm glad I had him here. Tom wins the record for the longest hold on the planet. Tom, what was the worst job?
We're going to go around the house. We're going to pick up all the bricks, all the crap, anything that can destroy a...
Well, I was listening to Tom.
That was a private conversation.
Private conversation, AB conversation, so I'm going to see my way out of it. I apologize, Tom, that we did not get to you, but I did want you to know that I was going to give you the opportunity. So there you go.
Sounds like they're doing some work over there.
It does. A lot of bricks. They got to move. I understand that. Alan said the first step in regaining a sense of humor is getting the F off social media. I think that's true. I've noticed that it's just not funny. It's not funny. Like, people are just mean and weird and crazy, and there's like AI slop all over the place that's just confusing. And it's gross. I think one of y'all just said the worst job you've ever had. I'm sorry. This is funny. I think I can say this, so it's fun. Want to talk about rough? I had to run a whorehouse by hand until I got some help. Now, that's rough. Well, yeah, that is not a good summer job. Just saying.
That's a felony.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's quite illegal. But we've had other people with illegal, terrible jobs. So there you go. I guess it's still a job, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't hang my hat on that one. And certainly not a solo practice there. Probably not a great deal.
Wonder how the benefits are.
I bet they're not great. 3449 said anyone that gets an endorsement surrenders certain control over their decisions. They're not in the 7th Congressional District, but Barrett is the most Massey-esque candidate and gives the most hope. Okay, there you go. I think that this one, for those of y'all who don't know, who are just joining us, President Trump endorsed Matt Van Epps, who's also endorsed by Governor Lee and by Mark Green for the 7th Congressional seat. It's a little unusual that it came this late, and I don't know how much of an impact that it's going to have. I do think that puts Van Epps in the driver's seat, and it's, I think, probably Barrett after that, and then probably Bolsa. Reeves dropped out, for those of y'all who don't know. He said that President Donald Trump is the quarterback, and he meant what he said, and the quarterback has chosen a different wide receiver. And that wide receiver is Matt Van Epps, so Reeves endorsed Matt Van Epps. So there you go. 2565 said, the worst job I ever had was writing newspaper columns. You know, I can't agree with you there, but I could see that. I could see that. Tim said, Opryland Park on a cart selling fruit juice. Jason said, I wasn't voting for anyone who was endorsed by Mark Green or Bill Lee. Okay. Jason, the point of that and why I think it's significant is if you look at the Venn diagram of the different candidates and who they appeal to, or I should say the endorsers and who they appeal to, between Mark Green, Bill Lee, and Donald Trump, you pretty much got the whole Republican Party covered. Somebody's going to say one of those is their person. And so that matters. 5309 says they believe that the whorehouse was just a joke and not a real job. Maybe. Well, Tom's here, and sounds like his construction project that he was working on may have resolved to the point where he can talk to us. Hey, Tom, what's up? What's the worst job?
Let me tell you, the worst job I ever had was there was a dairy barn in Hooterville, Kentucky. No, I'm sorry. Damn it. I've been drinking too much since I've been on hold for almost 2 hours. Anyway, here's what it was.
It's Friday, so I understand.
There was a dairy barn, and there was poop in it almost 3 feet thick. And it was 75 wide and 100 feet long. And my job was to dig all the crap out and throw it out the barn.
Yeah.
That's a really tough job. I had a pitchfork, I had a axe, and I had a shovel. And you know what they paid me?
What did it pay you?
Nothing. It was my family. That's what you do for families.
Well, you got to tell me what you did with the axe. The other ones I get. What'd you do with the axe?
Okay. The poop was so hard, you had to cut it up with the axe, so you scoop it out with a shovel and the pitchfork.
Well, hey, you know, I think you may have been underpaid
That
there.
was in 1974.
Well, I appreciate it, Tom. Thank you for the call, and that sounds like an awful job. And I now understand why you could hold for so long, because you've been getting wild there. So great job, Tom. I'm glad. I hope that you made it away from that job. Jason said, why do we have a picture of China on the TV in the background? Oh, I think the computer restarted, whatever that is.
And I don't have access to that computer.
Oh, well.
Enjoy the view.
Yeah, Jason, I don't know if you know this, but China is everywhere. From socks to,
that could also be somewhere else.
I'm pretty sure that's a pagoda.
But it's for sure Asia.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jason, I'm going to need a positive identification here. You're going to have to tell me what that is. So you may have to get some AI investigating there. 2774 said the worst job was mixing ingredients for bologna. Wow. I mean, bologna is one of those things, I'm kind of surprised it's still a thing, you know? I used to take Oscar Mayer bologna and stick it in the microwave, and it would cup up and make like a grease cup. And for some reason, I dumped out the grease, and then I found that delicious. I have not done that in decades, but as a little kid, I found it really, really awesome. And recently at barbecue joints, the thick slice bologna I'm okay with, right? Smoked thick slice bologna is actually pretty good. Super Talk text line 615-737-9986. A nursing home, porta potty cleaner. Oh, wow, this is a rough one and kind of sad. Going to vets, picking up the animals they put to sleep and take them to a pet cemetery. That's rough. Here's one. This sounds very interesting. Oh, wow. Many years ago, undisclosed location, medical school cadaver lab. Refrigeration went bad during the summer, and by the time it was noticed, cadavers were in advanced decomposition. We were tasked with scooping up the juices with a bowl and dispose of it, and then take the worm-infested bodies and carry them to be cremated.
He wins.
He wins.
There's not a worse job.
That is the worst thing I may have ever heard of.
Wow.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know how it gets worse than that one. And that's enough specific detail that I don't think that's just made up. I mean, with reference to the juices.
Goodness.
Oh, wow. That's
worse than clearing out clogs in septic tanks.
yeah, the porta potties. That's maybe the worst on everything. Dakota said the pet cemetery was the bologna factory. Ugh.
Oh,
Thank you, Dakota.
Goodness.
Yikes. Come on. I can't unsee that and think of that. But yes, Dawn said that she's about to vomit just hearing that. But yes, and it's also not it's people, right? And so the fact that those are human bodies, I think really, it would be bad if those were pets or something. But yeah, that wins. I mean, unless we find something worse, but I don't know how you could. 79.
Glad I'm not you.
Yeah. 7985 says, I could smell that job at the university, literally. Ooh. And they said,
Goodness.
It is not made up. Okay, cool. Ding, ding, ding. Winner, winner. I would say chicken dinner, but the thought of eating now is just rough. Okay. A couple things, and then we'll take a break. And where is Murphy at? That is a good question. He went to a boot camp graduation for his nephew. He's posted that on social media. Y'all should go check it out. Tell him and his family congratulations. That's pretty awesome, and I'm glad that he was able to go do that, and I'm glad I was able to spend some time with you. I did notice while we were looking up at who's the best football team in the state that both Baylor and Macaulay are nationally ranked. Max Preps 24, it's Max Preps, has Baylor at 23 in the country and Macaulay at 25. So that's a pretty big deal. None of the other, they're the only teams in Tennessee. And frankly, most states don't have anybody in the top 25, obviously. Your big states like California, Georgia, Texas, they have a bunch, Florida. But and I say this for the Vols fans out there, Tennessee's got more in the top 25 than Alabama. So, there you go. Go Vols. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I really want to talk about farmers and where we are with farmers right now, because the word that has been tossed around is Farmageddon. That this is just a really, really bad situation, policy-wise, economically, everything for farmers. I want to talk through that, understand it. If you're a farmer, I want to hear from you. 615-737-9986. We'll get to that and all the rest over the next couple hours. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for Alpha and Omega. Alpha and Omega, not new to the managed services industry. They've been around for a while. They've been in the computer industry for almost 30 years now. Since 1998, they've been helping people, and a lot has changed during that time, obviously. Well, here's the deal, friends. Things have just gotten more dangerous for those in business, especially when it comes to computers, because everybody's online. I mean, your network is accessible if you're online. That means that there are cyber hackers trying to get into your information, and they're trying to use it as ransom against you. 14 successful ransomware attacks happen every day. 14. And if you're a business owner, you're vulnerable. Call Alpha and Omega. Michael and his team can protect you. They do everything regarding computers, from setup to management to IT to printers to everything involving cybersecurity. They get it done. They want to be your go-to source. Call now for a free quote. 615-784-0096, 784-0096, or A&O.net, A&O.net.
President Trump thinks Hamas is serious about accepting his ceasefire proposal. Also, Sean Diddy Combs sentenced to prison today. President Trump reshaping the race in the 7th congressional district here in Tennessee. And the government shutdown rolls on. All this and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. I see you, Larry. Yeah, we're going to do nincompoops. I'll probably pick one somebody's already picked before, too. But we don't do it until 5:35, so we got a minute. My friend Alex said something that several of you have brought up. Her husband, Mike, said the worst job ever was corn detasseling, which you're basically taking the pollen fronds at the top of the plant and removing them by hand. Machines now remove most of them, but then you go through and pick the rest of them. The goal is to try to produce hybrid corn, and that sounds awful. I mean, not rotten cadaver awful, but pretty rough. So I get that. A couple topics before we get into the farming that I wanted to hit. The 1815 said, my wife and I voted for Mason Foley because of the interview with Matt Murphy recently, and he made good sense. He has no signs that we've seen, pack money, and he's young and unconnected. That's a good start. Okay. So Mason Foley has been a name that over the last couple days, y'all have circulated and said is significant. So I don't know how significant the Trump endorsement is because, one, it's late, and two, I don't know how many voters are like, well, another politician said to vote this way. I sure know when Mark Green endorsed Van Epps, people are like, you don't get to pick your successor. I think they might sing it a different tune now of, oh, well, if Trump says it's okay. So we'll see. I've never felt like endorsements mattered that much, particularly from like pundits and talking heads. I mean, that sort of thing is just weird. If there's an endorsement right now that matters, it is Donald Trump's. Again, it's just real late. So I want to turn the discussion now, and we'll start it. We'll do nincompoops in the news, and then we'll finish it. Farming, okay? This right now, the 9211 summarizes it best. Cost of production keeps going up, and prices keep going down. Plus, we have the USDA who constantly overestimates the national crop average, which drives down prices. Okay. I know that we've talked about tariffs and stuff like that. There's a couple things that I want to bring up that I think are relevant to this discussion. I don't think anyone can credibly argue that the prices for farmers going up and the cost going down for what they can sell is anything but the fault of the tariffs. Like that, we had farming's always been tough. It's not a super high margin thing. That's the reason we have the Farm Bill and a lot of the programs that we have, right? But we had a pretty robust, particularly in the case of soybeans, international market. Completely dried up. It completely dried up because of the tariffs, specifically with respect to China. China bought a lot of soybeans. And the input prices, because of steel, well, guess what? A lot of farm equipment, there's steel. Parts, so maybe something's made here, but parts come from all over the place. So there's tractors, combines, stuff like that, more expensive, and fertilizer. Input prices for fertilizer are really high. So that was a big deal. And then in the first half of this year, so that is the expense side of farming. Those have gone up. Exports to China dropped by more than half, from 12 billion last year to 5.5 billion. I know in the scheme of the federal government, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but that's a big deal. China hasn't bought a single cargo ship of new crop soybeans yet for the 25-26 season. That has not happened in 2 decades. China signed a deal with Argentina, who agreed to supply soybeans, corn, and vegetable oil. And China is basically saying, we're going to get our soybeans and the other things that we need from South America. And I don't know when this changes. So Trump has said, you know what? We'll use some of this tariff money to bail out the farmers. I don't know. That to me sounds, well, you created the problem and now you're giving farmers a bailout. I've worked on farms and with farmers for a lot of my life, particularly as a younger man. And the one thing I know about farmers is they don't really like government handouts and bailouts. Now, you're going to point to the Farm Bill and you're going to say, you know what? They sure like the Farm Bill. Yeah, and we can talk about that policy, but they want to grow fruits, vegetables, livestock, and they want to sell it. That's what farmers do. And the idea of I can't sell my stuff, and so I got to have the government subsidize me directly, like just give me money to keep me afloat, is a very hard pill for most farmers to swallow. And I don't know, folks. I want to know what you think about this, but this one is very concerning to me because once you disrupt those supply chains, it's not like they come back overnight. It's not like China's going to say, no, just kidding. We're not going to buy from South America. We're going to buy from you. And I think that's going to be a real issue. And I do not buy Scott Bessent saying, oh, well, China said the reason they're not buying is Biden. No, it's the tariffs. Let's talk about that a little bit more. We're going to do nincompoops in the news when we come back from the break, and then we'll get back into it. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Hamas has responded to President Trump's Gaza peace proposal, saying it will release all remaining hostages if Israel withdraws from Gaza and, quote, proper field conditions are met. Hamas also agreed to hand over administration of the Gaza Strip to a Palestinian body. President Trump ordering Israel to stop bombing the Gaza Strip in response, saying he believes Hamas is ready for peace. Qatar now says it's working with partners to complete discussions. As for Israel, no response yet. A federal judge in New York City sentencing Sean Diddy Combs to more than 4 years in prison on 2 prostitution-related convictions. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Sean Combs himself, once larger than life, was left begging for mercy, standing at the defense table, telling the judge that he's a changed man, apologizing for his behavior. But that request for a lenient sentence of time served was rejected by the judge.
Here's ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona.
What the judge told Sean Diddy Combs was like, look, in terms of your life work, of all the good you've done, in terms that you're a great father, it doesn't erase what I heard and what I saw during this 8-week trial. And what he heard and saw during this 8-week trial was one of Sean Diddy Combs taking advantage of Jane and Cassie by being violent to them.
Right now in Tennessee, with just 4 days until the 7th Congressional District Special Primary, President Trump making his pick, endorsing Republican candidate Matt Von Epps. That has prompted another Republican to exit the race, Lee Reeves. And the federal government shutdown will continue through the weekend with the Senate's failure today to advance a House-passed funding bill that would end it. The vote was 54 to 44, 60 votes needed. So far, just 3 Senate Democrats have been willing to vote with Republicans to fund the government and end the shutdown, but that's 5 short of breaking a filibuster. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. East Bank police reporting a crash 24 westbound after Ellington Parkway. Glencliff, injury crash, blocking the right 2 lanes, 40 eastbound after Spence Lane. In Sumner County, we've got a crash 65 southbound after 31 west in Millersville. And in Laverne, Rutherford County, a crash, left shoulder block, 24 westbound near Waldron Road. Over by the airport, a crash, right lane block, 40 westbound near Donaldson Pike. And in Antioch, still got some police activity in the right lane, 24 westbound near Haywood Lane. I'm Ken Weaver.
Friends, if you own land and you're looking to do something with it, or perhaps you want to add value to it, might I recommend an incredible post-frame building from Stoltz Co. They are the leading provider of post-frame buildings in Middle Tennessee and beyond. Stoltz Co. is the company that delivers first-class customer service with the creation of any post-frame building you can imagine, such as a pole barn, a garage, an equestrian space, an event space, or, yes, a barn dominium. Folks live in these post-frame buildings. The barn dominiums are incredible. You just need to see them to understand them. When you go to stoltzco.com, I'll spell that for you in just a moment, stoltzco.com, you can see a future home. You can see someplace to turn into a she shed or a man space. Whatever you're looking to do, perhaps an in-law suite on your property. It will raise the value of your property, and it will give you great memories for years and years to come. Friends, go to stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com, or give them a call and sit down and talk to them today about what you desire, what you dream. If you can dream it, they can do it at Stoltzco. 615-622-5992, 622-5992 for Stoltzco.
Welcome out. Welcome out. Welcome back. Not out. That doesn't make any sense. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show. The conversation that we were having was about farmers, but we need to take a moment for the all-important segment, Nincompoops in the News.
Nincompoops in the News.
That's always a very strange thing, that sound. What are the instruments involved therein?
I'm not sure what that is. Sounds like some sort of horn.
Yeah.
That's a trumpet.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Was it Jackson that won again? It was a pretty even one yesterday.
What was my story yesterday?
I don't know, but it was a winner.
Ken, do you remember?
I do not, man. I don't remember what we do 10 minutes after we do it.
I remember talking about the guy eating peacocks, and y'all were like, yeah, we already did this one.
Yeah.
I won with that one on Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a good one.
It was a really good one.
I mean, that guy, come on. He threatened the lady who was feeding the peacocks by saying, I'm going to eat them if you feed them. And he did. And
only one of us out of me or the peacocks is getting fed, and it's me.
Yeah. Okay.
Jackson had something about a naked guy again.
Nebraska. No,
that was a couple. What was yesterday's?
Can't remember, man.
I don't know. Well, we got to go with something. So you got something?
Yeah, I got something.
Go for it.
Allegedly stoned driver calls police to report themselves. A Barrie resident is facing an impaired driving charge stemming from a strange incident that occurred Sunday in northern Ontario at around 9 p.m. on September 28th. East Algoma OPP says it received a traffic complaint call from a vehicle traveling eastbound on Highway 17. The driver told police that they thought they were being followed by another vehicle. The driver was unable to provide their exact location and could only confirm their direction of travel. The OPP's provincial Communications Center in North Bay maintained contact with the driver, which ultimately led to the police department conducting a traffic stop. And police officers say when they spoke with the driver, they detected the odor of freshly burnt cannabis. Police also say the driver also allegedly showed signs of impairment and paranoid behavior. The driver was arrested and transported to a hospital in Canada for medical assessment. After being released from the hospital, the individual was taken to the police department detachment for further testing.
Reported himself.
Yeah,
Well,
so
that was nice of
there was
him.
nobody following him. He was just so high that he thought somebody was following him, and he called the police.
I like that.
Interesting.
That's good. He's a noble guy.
Yeah,
Weed's
he's
legal in
noble.
Canada. I'm driving while high.
Ken, you got anything?
I do got one, boys. Here we go. Let's see here. Man accused of going on nude crime spree in Colorado. Just before 4 a.m. Saturday, May 17th, Colorado Springs police say they were called to the 1400 block of West Pikes Peak Avenue to investigate an in-progress burglary. KRDO 13 spoke with the homeowner there who said they woke up to the sound of shattering. They say a man forced his way in through one of their doors after trying multiple times. Once inside, they say he went through many of their belongings, not taking anything, just laying them out on the floor. The homeowner says the man took off his clothes and went into their bathroom, went into a rage and trashed it before leaving through a window. Security camera footage captured the man then climbing on top of a van outside the home, jumping up and down and rocking the van, waking up someone sleeping inside. The person in the van hopped into the driver's seat and took off, with the man still on top of the van. After that, police say the suspect somehow made his way to the 1300 block of West Colorado Avenue, where he threw a flower pot through a window of a business to break into it. Business by the name of Eve's Revolution. We lost a pot out of it and some clothing and some decor inside, explained the owner, Julie Megan. The Colorado Springs Police Department says they finally apprehended 46-year-old Chad Orr at the boutique, naked and appearing to be under the influence. They couldn't confirm there, though. They took him to jail. And then one of the homeowner apparently says this is a good reminder to make sure your doors and windows are all locked and secured. They run a worship service out of their home and say they just hope the man can get help and find Jesus.
You know it's bad when they're telling you to find God.
It's, yeah, that's fair. I've got a Florida man, and I hope that we haven't heard this one, too.
Oh, let's hear it, Brother Cam.
Okay. A Florida man was clocked going more than 107 miles per hour on the highway. Why are you going so fast? A Flagler County Sheriff's Office deputy asked 57-year-old Michael Stanek on a body camera, to which Stanek responded, I have an appointment with my barber.
Hey, haircuts are it's tough to get an appointment these days.
Stanek from Willaca said he was headed to New Smyrna Beach when he was pulled over in Palm Coast. The two destinations more than an hour's drive from each other, and the body cam footage had him explaining that his hair was the reason that he was going 107 miles an hour. The traffic unit deputy told Stanek that he would go spend the night in jail after weaving in and out of traffic and putting other people's lives in danger. He was arrested for dangerous excessive speeding, taken to the Sheriff Perry Hall inmate detention facility, where he was released on a $150 bond. I didn't know that you could get out that cheaply. Like, hey, if you got, he probably could have made his haircut. I mean, who knows?
It's an expensive haircut, though.
It is.
That guy's a definite nincompoop. I mean, he put people in danger because he needed to make his hair appointment on time.
But since this is a Florida man, what I'm really disappointed at is that the deputy did not say, so, do you have any drugs on you? Like, he should have immediately, oh, wait.
So where are the drugs?
Is it meth? And, just
he
check.
pulls out a big wheel, and it's, let's play Guess That Narcotic.
Yeah, it's all of Florida. All Florida.
Good
man.
old Florida.
Okay, well, that's Nincompoops in the news. Vote. Tell us. We need to know now.
Vote for Ken Weaver.
Mine wasn't great.
So I think you should vote for Ken Weaver, too. And the reason why is, and I've listened to this for the last 3 days, and it's been just joyous for me, that every time Ken does the news, when he says, I'm Ken Weaver, I'm like, are you asking me a question? This is like Ron Burgundy. Ken does his Ron Burgundy. He's like, I'm Ron Burgundy?
I'm Ken Weaver?
Yes. And it is every time. It's just funny for me. And then earlier today, I was kind of doing a bunch of things, and I thought he said that Hamas would weigh in on the P. Diddy sentencing. To which I was like, whoa, that's a teaser. Hamas is going to return the hostages, and I guess we're sending them P. Diddy in exchange. I don't know.
And by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Ken Weaver?
I'm Ken Weaver.
Yes. And when he says it, I'm like, are you? I think you are. I can see you through the glass. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra, for said maybe the guy's hair was on fire.
That's what I thought of, too.
His hair was on fire, and he was driving really, really, really fast.
And see, that takes us back to yesterday's show when we were talking about all the slang.
Yes. I don't know. The slang was good, and I love that, and you guys love all the phrases. I'm still traumatized by the cadaver clean out of Worst Job. Like, I can't even imagine.
I don't even think Mike Rowe ever covered that.
No, that is the dirtiest of dirty jobs. And
goodness.
I can't do that. So, hey, I got several votes. I don't know. It looks like I may have pulled this one out.
That's the way to go, Brother Cam.
That's every now and then I get a win. Unlike the Titans. We just don't.
That was a.
No, we're look, I've been a longtime Titans fan, and I love the Titans. So I can say this. This is honestly one of the lowest moments in program history and deeply concerning to me.
Deeply concerning.
I just don't know.
There does not seem to be. They're getting worse.
Yes.
Each week.
And they don't have enough quality pieces for a fire sale, so it's going to be more like a yard sale.
Yes, the Titans yard sale. Speaking of nincompoops, we got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
U.S. passed. I passed one of the beautiful billboards just today. I forgot where it was, but it was beautiful. It was gorgeous, and it said U.S. passed, and it said anything it takes, and it was flying the beautiful American flags because J.K. and Erica Brister love this country, and they love you to have a pest-free home, and they are endeavoring to do that every single day. They hire good people, and they bring them out to your homes, and these technicians will give you a free home inspection. They aren't going to try to pressure you into doing something you don't want to do, but here's the deal. You're threatened by termites. You're threatened by other bugs. And these bugs bring disease with them into your home. Rodents bring disease with them into your home. You need to eliminate that out of your life with U.S. Pest. They're simply the best when it comes to home protection. Now, I strongly recommend you get monthly protection from U.S. Pest. But if you feel like you've got an infestation that needs dealing with right now, go ahead and make the call. USPest.com is online, USPest.com, or call 590-1260 and tell them that I sent you. For any sort of bug or creepy crawly outdoor, pests like ticks and fleas are in abundance this time of year, and your pets can bring them into the house. Let's not let that happen. Let's get protected from U.S. Pest. Two things. They love America and they hate bugs. U.S. Pest.
Hamas responds and Diddy's headed to prison. These stories and more at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. Jeff, I see you on the line. We are going to hit the top of the hour break, and so I will get to you on the other side. I do want to set up this conversation a little bit because I think there's a lot. One, I do think I now see the votes. I think I won. So yay, nincompoop, me, woohoo. The tariffs, the trade, kind of what's going on. So I was pulling this information yesterday to try to get a better sense of what's going on, how this has happened, what it means. And the first thing that I picked up that I was shocked about was, what do y'all think during Trump's first term? How did the trade deficit change? Anybody know? 615-737-9986. Tell me now. I want to know. Anybody know what happened? Because this is the whole thing, right? We have too much of a trade deficit. We got to fix this. Trump's going to get to the bottom of it, and he's going to change it, right? I was shocked to look at this, that, and I'll quote this. This is an article from right after his first term. The combined U.S. goods and services trade deficit increased to $679 billion in 2020 compared to $481 billion in 2016, which is the year before Trump took office. The trade deficit in goods alone hit $916 billion, a record high at an increase of about 21% from 2016. So we were told that this is how this would work, is that Trump would come in, would do this, and during his first term, the trade deficit actually exploded. And if you look what's happening now, the issue with all this tariff stuff is that while we may reduce some of the imports coming in, and the idea there, which I'm sympathetic to and understand, is, well, buy American. Well, what we do is we also simultaneously cut off international marketplaces. So our exports drop too. They don't have anywhere to put them. And when you're fighting with Canada, you're fighting with China, Brazil, we're having these back and forths. China basically had learned from Trump's first term and said, you know what? We'll just put a freeze on it. We will not buy soybeans. And we are such a big consumer that freezing our soybean purchases is going to absolutely crush American farmers. And then they will turn and look at Trump and say, and let's be honest, for the GOP, farmers are a really important constituency. It's somebody that Republicans care about a lot. They're typically very conservative. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them. And it's really interesting, but even before the full tariffs went into effect in August, USDA projected that we will import nearly 50 billion more in farm products this year than we export. And that, to me, is a big part of the problem. And so we've got to figure out how we're going to handle this, right? Because if the answer is we're going to rake our farmers over the coals, but don't worry, we'll give them a government handout, I don't know. That doesn't sound very conservative to me. Jeff's going to explain to me why I'm wrong, and we'll get to him after the break. But I appreciate you being with me, and we'll close out the last hour in a solid fashion on this wonderful, wonderful Friday. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
6 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. Cautious optimism after Hamas announced it's agreed in principle to parts of the U.S. ceasefire proposal in Gaza, including the release of all remaining hostages abducted nearly 2 years ago. President Trump, in a statement, says he believes Hamas is ready for lasting peace. There are concerns that Hamas could be stalling, saying further talks are needed. ABC's Shannon Kingston has more.
Hamas did say that it was willing to release all of them, living or dead, from Gaza, which is, of course, incredibly important to Israel. But it did say that there were conditions that would need to be met first. And Israel has to be part of those discussions, of course, to move forward.
A Hamas leader in an interview with Al Jazeera cast doubt that all hostages could be released within 72 hours as outlined in the plan. President Trump also called on Israel to immediately stop the bombing in Gaza, he says, so they can get all the hostages out safely and quickly. This is ABC News.
Federal judge in New York City sentenced Sean Diddy to prison on 2 prostitution-related convictions today. ABC's Aaron Katersky's outside the courthouse in Manhattan.
He sentenced Sean Combs to 4 years in prison. That's not as much as federal prosecutors here wanted. They wanted 11 years in prison, reminding the judge that Sean Combs has a penchant for violence and abuse, pointing to 2016 hotel security video showing Combs attacking Cassie Ventura.
ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villanova has more, that is, on the message the judge may have been trying to relay with this sentence.
The judge sent a message that, yes, you have family, yes, you have people that love you, but Jane and Cassie were victims, and victims should be accounted for, and someone should speak for the victims and deter this type of conduct.
Right now in Tennessee, with just 4 days until the 7th Congressional District special primary, President Trump has made his endorsement backing Republican candidate Matt Von Epps. Trump announced his complete and total endorsement of Van Epps on Truth Social, calling him an America First patriot and praising his military service and conservative credentials. The endorsements already reshaped the race, with State Rep Lee Reeves dropping out. And the federal government shutdown will continue through the weekend, with the Senate's failure Friday to advance a House-passed funding bill that would end it. The vote was 54-44. 60 votes were needed. Here's Stephen Portnoy.
The vote was 54-44, but 60 votes were needed. Democrats say unless their demands are met, they'll continue blocking the House-passed bill that would reopen the government and fund it through November 21st. Republican Majority Leader John Thune says his party will continue an across-the-aisle appeal in an effort to end the shutdown.
Hopefully over the weekend they'll have a chance to think about it, and maybe some of these conversations start to result in something.
Democrats continue demanding an extension of expiring Obamacare subsidies and a reversal of recent Medicaid changes that Republicans just made. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Brentwood got a crash, left 2 lanes blocked, 65 northbound near Concord Road. And in Glencliff, TDOT still showing a crash, 40 eastbound after Spence Lane. Police reporting a crash in Millersville, 65 southbound after 31 west. And in Laverne, crash, according to TDOT, left shoulder block, 24 westbound near Waldron Road. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. 4150 says, somebody tell Ken it's Van Epps, not Von Epps. There you go, Ken. It's Van Epps, not Von Epps. I'm supposed to tell you that.
I apologize.
Yes. Well, I was deeply offended. So I appreciate you getting that right. I obviously was not. Jeff he's been patient, and he's going to tell me about Chinese tariffs. All right, Jeff, what you got?
Hey, Cameron.
Howdy.
Hey, basically, with the farmers and everything, don't want to take a subsidy or don't want to take a handout from the government. I think you're completely wrong about that because through no fault of their own, this is going on. Just like, they can't, they have nothing to do with the tariffs going on in China and that they've been cut off.
Well, right, but I mean, my point is, I'm assuming, Jeff, that you're conservative. If the government and conservatives cut off your livelihood and then said, "Here, it's a government check instead," would you be happy?
Well, yeah. If that's the one, if it's through no fault of my own, it's just like crop
Yeah, that's
insurance,
not real conservative. I mean, just to be honest, right?
Well, it's conservative is if like I say, now you give me autonomy that I can make the arrangements with China through myself instead of through the government, maybe that would be a different story, but it's the government's fault.
It is the government's fault, but my point is, and I see what you're saying of, well, hey, it's the government's fault, so the government gives you a check because they messed up. Do you think the government messed up?
No, not necessarily.
So then why should the government pay farmers?
Well, it'd be a temporary thing. I mean, it's just like.
Well, you say that, but how do we know it's temporary? What is are they going to start buying soybeans again?
Well, we may have to go to a different crop. May have to be corn. May have to be sunflower. Could be a multitude of different things. You might have to retool how you plant.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Let's say I'm growing soybeans and now I grow sunflowers, okay? Somebody still has to buy those, right?
Exactly.
So if you cut 50% of the demand for soybeans and then I go to sell sunflowers and there's no buyer for sunflowers, what do I do then?
Well, there's got to be a market for something, what are the Brazil? You say this stuff is coming from Brasilia now, or
yeah, it's coming from South America.
South America. Okay, now they've got an uptick in all the crops that they're needing to produce now.
Right, that's called demand, and so they're selling it, and they're selling to China, and we're not. So the market's down here, so they're benefiting, and our farmers are getting hurt. Help me understand, Jeff. What am I missing?
Well, can they meet the produce enough to meet the quotas that they already had, or are they selling everything to China? Basically, there's other world markets. I mean, I look at Africa as being basically a gateway to what's going to be a new, everything. The developed world is developed most every place else except for maybe China, for Africa.
Sure.
And,
but I mean, here's my question. Right now, Chinese demand, they're a massive country with a lot of people, so they consume a lot. And so they are basically shifting that away from us. And your answer to the farmers who are getting crushed right now is maybe Africa?
Well, it's got to be, the people are going to have to get something from somewhere. I mean, maybe farmers, it's like anything else. Maybe farmers will have to change what they do and cut back on their production.
But you don't think that the tariffs,
guaranteed.
you don't think the tariffs caused this?
Yes, I do. I think the tariffs caused this. And like I say, the corporate farmer, they're not going to scoff at getting government money. I mean, and that's what most of your farmers are nowadays. The small farmer is far and few between nowadays, compared to what it was when we was kids.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the call, Jeff. And, Jeff's answer is, well, they should take the government check. Yeah, the tariffs caused this, but either do something different or take your check. I don't know, man. I don't know. Josh may have some thoughts on this. Let me see where we are on time. Just a second. Okay, we got your time, Josh. All right, Josh, help me out here. Help me.
All right, so a little off topic, real quick. I appreciate what you said earlier about raising a son that doesn't look like you, whatever, with the police. My oldest came into my life, and her mother, when she was 4 years old, Hispanic. We moved to a rural area, and the schooling changed the demographics, and yeah, she couldn't fart wrong. So I got you, brother. I understand that completely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for putting it out there. But to the farming thing, so yeah, a lot of your corporate farmers are going to take the subsidies.
Right.
A lot of your corporate farmers are going to push Democrat votes. This coming from experience. My mother's side of the family are smaller, kind of medium-sized farmers.
Yeah.
From rural Minnesota. So they survive off a lot of these subsidies. We subsidize them because they feed us.
Yep.
I don't agree with that. My morals say that's wrong. We shouldn't do that. But at the same time, we have to eat. Now, my question really was, okay, so you were talking about the raise in the percentage raise in our trade imbalance.
Yeah, trade deficit. Yeah.
Trade deficit. Yes, sir. Sorry, I've got my dogs out here. Just got home. Well, my question is, though, okay, so inflation, COVID, all that, we're going from 16 to 20. All right. Now you look at the price of eggs, price of gas, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A lot of it had to do with, I'll just be honest, the COVID spending. Trump spends like a Democrat. I love most of what he does, but the guy spends his face off.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it is. I know, and that's why I enjoy listening to you, because you're truthful about that. You're not a fanboy, either am I. But so I would like those numbers, maybe, not to say that the tariffs are doing us right now, and they did us right back then, but a lot, I say a lot, I guess, but so you have these numbers that can be twisted, these percentages.
Sure.
I'd like to see the big picture. How do you feel about that? Have you done that research yet, or?
Yeah, and I'm not actually going to, and I appreciate the call, Josh. I'm not going to beat Trump over the trade deficit, because the trade deficit it's not a real deficit. The national debt is money we owe, right? The trade deficit is basically what we would call a trade imbalance, right? It means it is the delta between imports and exports. And so there are a lot of reasons why you would have a trade deficit, depending on what you buy and from whom. What I'm looking at is we actually benefit quite well from free trade. And some of y'all said, well, so we just let China win? We let China rake us over the coals? Well, how do you think the farmers are doing right now? You know the answer. I know the answer. It's poorly. This is what a trade war does. That's just the truth. So we are not winning here. Just ask the farmers who can't sell their crops. They're not winning. The problem with tariffs and things like that is it sounds good in theory, because it's basically we're going to make you pay us for stuff you send here. But that's just really, that hasn't borne out ever. And I think we got to be real careful here when we start changing the global supply chain. We start saying, well, no, we don't want this. Well, because we cut off our businesses too. So we may be protectionist of saying, okay, you're not going to get a free pass to come in here, dump your stuff in our country if we can't have access to yours. I actually respect that. If you want to say we need to take down trade barriers all the way around, if you're going to put a 30% trade barrier on our stuff, we're going to put a 30% one. These are reciprocal tariffs. And for a long time, I thought that's what we were going to get. But that's not what we got. We just got trade taxes. Trump likes tariffs, period. And so if you want to take it to China, it's through trade. It is, you don't get to tariff our stuff, so we don't get to tariff yours. So let's just take off the tariffs and call it a day. That's good for our farmers. It's good for our country. And that's tough negotiating. But the idea of, well, we're just going to cut off a demand for this stuff is really bad. And the idea, and you better believe the Chinese Communist Party is targeting our farmers because they know it's a sore point. And China, they don't want to be dependent on us for anything. They've been pretty clear about that. They want us to be dependent, but they don't want to be dependent. And I hear all of y'all saying there are these corporate farms and they'll take the handouts and they've always been subsidized. And look, I don't like subsidies. The crop insurance subsidies for certain farmers picks winners and losers. I don't like the policy, but I understand it. You know, crop insurance, the reason it's there on these commodity crops is you're growing a lot, and if it fails, you're done. Cattle farmers are doing very well right now. Go look at the price of beef. So, yes, we may have to change the mix, but when you take billions of dollars of crop purchases off the table, you do kill a lot of farms. You just do. You will. And when you increase their cost of doing business and do that, they're cooked. So, I mean, I hear you, and I think that's important to know that. But my goal and what I thought was going to happen with all this tariff stuff is that we help the farmer and we keep prices low. In fact, we decided to do the opposite and have a trade war instead. Ricky, maybe you can explain to me what I'm not getting. Help me understand, Ricky.
Hey, I saw an article in Wall Street Journal regarding exactly the same thing today. And so my thinking is one of the reasons China is not buying because they could get the cheaper one from Brazil. And my thinking is, there are two or three things we could do. Actually. One is undercut Brazil in the price, actually, because there are people who are hungry and they need some veggie. People need some protein.
Right.
And soybean has the highest protein, like 43.2% in compared to any other source of veggie protein. Actually.
Yep.
So we cut the cost actually to make sure actually we could utilize them, and temporarily we might have to take basically losses or not so much gain. And government, they have to be able to basically support them temporarily. Second, I think a part of the soybean could be converted to something which have much longer shelf life. I come from India, so we use soya body actually, which is like years. You could protect it.
Right.
So having competitive price, number one. Second, converting into the long-term thing which could be sold when the demand is high.
Right.
And third, retooling something which is in high demand.
Yeah.
So I think those are like few tools which farmers could use for long term. And meanwhile, if they have to take subsidy to survive, so be it, actually, because you have to make sure your children and your wife is fed.
Yes, sir. And hey, I appreciate the call. I think that's true. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And yes, as a family of beef cattle folks, I know that the price on the hoof and the price that is there at the supermarket are very, very different animals. Literally. So yes, this is a complex situation. My take on this is that there are two things I would like to see as a conservative. One, free trade, and I mean free trade. I don't mean we have no tariffs and these guys get to charge tariffs. I mean, you don't charge tariffs, we don't. It's open free trade because that gives our businesses access to global demand. That's a big deal. Ask any business, hey, do you want to just have a local market or do you want a national market? Pretty quickly, they're looking at a national market. Do you want just a national market or do you want to be able to sell your stuff around the world? Businesses that are smart want the largest achievable market for their business. That makes a lot of sense. And no, I understand it. Some start real small, but most folks want to grow. And I do get where we are. 6256 says tariffs aren't the reason we and farmers are where we are right now. 30 years or more of bad foreign trade policy is the problem. It's unlikely that there will be a pain-free remedy. So I actually take exception with that. You can say that it's bad foreign trade policy, but if you look at how the United States is done, how our economy is done, by so many different measures, it's been explosive in a positive way. I think it's a very, very good idea to say you can't block us from your markets. I think we should absolutely. I'm fine if you want to use tariffs to do that, and say we got to knock down the trade barriers, but to say no, we're not going to engage in international trade. We're not going to let our farmers have access to other marketplaces. And I will say with China, I think one of the big misses here is, well, China is going to, if we have lower prices, they don't want to buy from us. They don't want to be dependent on us. They want to be the global superpower, and they don't want to have anything to do with us. They want us dependent on them, and they don't want to be dependent on us. I think it's actually in our interest for them to have some dependency on us. I think it's really good for us that China needs us. And I want to do the same thing. I don't want to need them as much. So we should think through that. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
The Tennessee Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. That's what I was trying to say. Is here for you when you need them. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for Dr. Brian McLaughlin and our buddies at the Tennessee Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. Say it again, Murph. Here's the deal. I sleep well despite the way that I started this conversation. I sleep well because of my FDA-approved mouthpiece that I wear on a nightly basis, thanks to Dr. Brian McLaughlin and the team at the Tennessee Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. It's what they do, right? And they can fit you for one as well. If you're not sleeping well, if you snore, if you think you might have sleep apnea and you're not sure, get yourself a sleep test and let's find out. They can direct you in the right direction in that regard as well. And then they create a 3D scanned image of your mouth that they then utilize to create that mouthpiece. It's specific to your mouth. It goes in on a nightly basis. You don't notice it after a night or two, and you sleep better. It holds the jaw forward. You breathe better. You get more energy out of your sleep. You sleep through the night. You're not waking up constantly. This is what it's all about, friends. Sleeping better, getting more energy in the morning. That stoppage of snoring is an indicator that you stop breathing throughout the course of the night. And if you're noticing that, that's a very dangerous situation. It's the TMJ Solution Center with Dr. Brian McLaughlin and the rest of the team. Go to TennesseeSleep.com. That's TennesseeSleep.com and find out more. And I encourage you to schedule an appointment in Murfreesboro or Brentwood today.
Well, welcome back. We've got a little bit of time. Not enough for a call, but we will get to calls on the other side of the half-hour break. Great commentary here, 615-737-9986. I appreciate your input here on this tariff stuff with farmers. 2151 seems very excited. Very excited. So to finally fix a system rigged against our farmers is bad? F you. There's never been a true free trade with these countries. Actually, there's free trade with a lot of them. Like, we've done that. It's made us a very rich country. And how are we fixing this system? We're not. Like, that to me is what... I don't see how this is anything other than big government. This is the government saying, here's who you can sell to, here's who you can't. Here's when you buy inputs, we're making it's a trade tax. It just is. I mean, that's what they are. And so I get it. And I understand those of you that are saying, hey, well, we should give it a chance, see how it goes. Okay. How long do you think farmers need to hang on? How much should the checks be to them? He's floating $10 billion to farmers. I mean, that's a lot of money. So I do think Lacey said something, and I want to address it directly. We're in a continuous struggle with China for world dominance. It's not business as usual when dealing with them. Grow a backbone. Okay. I agree. And we win by being the bigger, badder dog in the yard. You're the bigger, badder dog in the yard when you have all the money because everybody trades with you and buys your stuff. You don't become the biggest, baddest dog in the yard by punching your farmers in the face. So I mean, I hear what you're saying, Lacey. And Jason wanted me to yell at somebody today, so I guess it's you. Like, this isn't tough. This isn't working. We're just lying if we say it is. And it's fine to say that you shouldn't subsidize farmers. I agree with you. I just agree. But, they should buy and sell their wares just like everybody else without government intervention. But what we've done here is said, well, we want the government to do economic engineering. We want the government to engage here. We want the government to tax us, and we want to eliminate demand from other countries. I mean, that's a policy perspective, but it seems kind of strange. Conservatives have for the longest time said, actually, we're better when we are really good at business, when we sell stuff that the world wants. And I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you that we should have access to foreign markets. I thought all along that Trump was going to use these tariffs to take down those trade barriers and give our businesses access to foreign markets that they didn't have. And John says, well, if you're thinking that China doesn't need us, you need to study import-export history. It's a consumption population. Yeah, John, I have, actually. And if you look at how much they're consuming, it's growing with their population. If you look at how much they're consuming from us, take a look, John. Let me know what you think. Because they don't want to be beholden to the global superpower. They want to be it. So they don't want to be dependent on us. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Hello, gentlemen. Obviously, it is a tender subject when I talk about intimacy in your romantic relationship, but I always like to treat it with the respect that it deserves. And gentlemen, you don't have to whistle past that graveyard any longer, and you don't have to just put it beyond you. There comes a time in every man's life where he feels like, well, I guess the intimacy, the romance in the relationship has gone by. You do not have to deal with that. You can go to Tennessee Men's Clinic, and it's a very intimate and a very personal conversation that you'll have with a urologist at Tennessee Men's Clinic. But at the same time, it's very important because you can get back in the game, man, through the Tennessee Men's Clinic. And that is so important in your relationship to do just that. So with locations in Cool Springs, the original in Midtown, and now a brand new one in Clarksville, their urologists are there for you. They'll bring you in, they'll give you some blood work, they'll give you some blood testing, and they'll figure out what's going on in your body and how they can assist you to get you back in the game. That's what it's all about, man. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com or 615-208-9090 to schedule an appointment at either 3 locations today.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. Robert and Terry, y'all been very patient. I'll get to you momentarily. A couple thoughts from the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. I'm okay with trying things, and then if they work, do them, right? And again, I don't think Trump was inherently wrong to try to, I think he was right, to try to take down trade barriers. And some of y'all seem to believe that if we need to give him time. Well, he had one term and the trade deficit went way up. And we're in the second term and we've had rocky results, to put it mildly. Joseph said, what's gotten everyone's butt this evening? It's almost like it's Monday afternoon. It was Jason's fault. Jason told me that he needed me to yell at somebody. So here we are. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that we keep talking about trade deficit like the goal should be a trade surplus. Well, okay, cool. That sounds good. But we consume a lot ourselves, right? We consume a lot of our own stuff. I've done a show on this and talked to you about this. And so we are the second largest consumer of goods and the largest consumer of services on the planet. China is, I think, number one on goods. But, I mean, we're a big consumer. So a lot of what we make here, we consume here. Some stuff we heavily, like our clothes. Most of the clothes that, if you can hear the sound of my voice, you are wearing right now, it was imported at some point. The fabric, the entire thing, that's like, I think it's like 85%. And that to me is the missing part, is you got to look at our domestic consumption and what we consume of the stuff we produce, and then look at the trade stuff. Because a trade imbalance, we don't owe any money to anybody. It's just what we're buying versus what other people are buying. And we should want a trade surplus because it means that we're selling a ton to the rest of the world. So if we're selling a ton to ourselves and selling a ton to the rest of the world, we are an economic monster. And we are right now. But when you say, no, we're gonna start trade wars, it isolates us. It takes away part of the market for our companies. And so that's not a hard tactic. That's not bending somebody's arm. That's just taking away opportunity from your own companies. And that's the issue, is why would you do that? Doesn't make any sense. And I haven't had anybody explain it to me in a way that does make sense. It's just, well, don't worry, it will work out. Well, tell that to the farmers. I mean, they're about to lose their farms. Robert, help me out. Robert?
On the tariff parts, tariffs should be, I always said that we should put tariffs on them the same as they put on us.
Yep, I think that's fair.
We shouldn't go any more than that.
Yeah, and the ultimate goal, right, should be to not have tariffs either way, right? Like, we get to sell to them, they get to sell to us, and, everybody's happy and government's out of the way. Make sense?
That's right.
All right.
That makes perfect sense.
Well, I appreciate it, Robert. Good call. I mean, I agree with what Robert's saying. He is right that if you're selling into our market, we need to sell into your market at least on the same terms. I'll talk to Senator Haggerty about that. He explained it beautifully, and I was the one, arguing like, I just know free trade's good. I'm not sure about this. And Senator Haggerty explained it and said, hey, look, we need to take down these barriers because we need fair trade. I said, okay, cool. I'm here for that. And then that's not what we got. It was, we just like tariffs. And that's just like, we like taxes. It's weird to see Republicans, saying, look how much government revenue we generated. That's what Democrats do, guys. By the way, picking peaches was hard. You had to wear long sleeve shirts in 100-degree weather. Yes, that harkens back to our worst jobs ever. But man, eat a peach here and there. I could get behind that. 7861 says, I can't stand this tool. Okay. I mean, I understand that conservative policy ideas aren't for everybody. And, if that's upsetting, then that's where it is. Cameron, what can you do about the Chinese manipulating the currency to help their people so it's really not free trade when they do that? Yeah, I want to be real clear. China's not a good actor here. Every one of y'all saying that the Chinese want to knock us off the throne, the top dog spot on the globe, is true. Is true. And so, yes, we should play hard ball with China. We should not just say, okay, whatever you want. And in that respect, I agree with Trump. You open your market to us. You open your market to us. We open our market to you. You close your market to us. We close our market to you. And China actually is probably okay with that. I don't see China saying, why don't we let's get to free trade with the U.S. They like, this is what's kind of crazy. They like, the folks who like tariffs think like the Chinese. I want you to hear that. Those folks who like tariffs think like the Chinese. Why? Because they're trying to plan the economy. What China wants to do is they want to hit tariffs to protect their economy. That means they want to stop your imports going into China. They don't want to buy a lot of stuff from everybody else, but they want to sell everything else. And so they want to basically make it super cheap so everybody's addicted to their stuff. And we should fight that. We should absolutely fight that. I'm getting John fired up, and I want to acknowledge what John's saying on the Super Talk text line before we take a break. You're wrong. We don't like tariffs, nor do we like taxes, but you're taking a hammer and trying to turn it into concrete. Quit with already. He's already give the tariffs leverage, time to work. Well, John, he had a full term and the trade deficit went up. He's got another term and farmers are getting shredded. When does this have to work? And I'm saying we got to figure this out. We got to have a game plan here, because once that supply chain redirects, once that demand, the people that were buying from us say, you know what, we're not going to buy as much from those guys anymore. We'll go find somewhere else to buy it. They ain't coming back quickly unless we give them a compelling reason. Lacey says, I like your show, but sometimes I think your brain is the size of a soybean. Well, my wife does too sometimes. Wayne, what you got on tariffs?
Well, tariffs were originally designed by our forefathers to pay for our government, to operate our government.
They're taxes.
We weren't designed. Well, they're taxes, but they're not taxes on. Even though it will trickle down to the people, they're not taxes on the people, like paying an income tax or all the.
Hang on, how are they not like that?
Well, I mean, because when they came up with tariffs were designed, that money was going to go and fund our federal government.
That's what taxes do.
Well, but we weren't paying those taxes. Yeah, maybe we inadvertently in products that we're coming across, but.
So wait a minute. We got before we get to what they're spent on, like, who pays for the tariffs? Is it us or is it somebody else?
Well, the tariffs are paid to the government.
Yep.
By the people that are bringing trade into our our country. Now, does that trickle down to us? Well, yeah, it's because I'm not going to sell in my business. I'm not going to sell something for less and still pay the taxes on it.
So it's a tax on either American businesses or American consumers, right?
It's going to go down to the consumers, but what I'm saying is that the tariffs were originally designed to prevent us from having the federal income tax. But of course, we didn't get a federal income tax. We didn't have our first income tax until Abraham Lincoln imposed an income tax on the people, and we've never gone back. I mean, ever since then. But our country. Our government was not founded on the principle of taxing individuals of their incomes,
right?
Because that was because that's what they did in England and in Europe through the monarchies. They would tax their people into oblivion. Nobody could ever get ahead because you had to pay your lord's taxes or you had to pay the
and they didn't have
taxes and stuff.
They didn't have electricity either. I mean, like there's some big changes, right?
There's a big difference in between paying for services and paying taxes. That's the reason why property taxes are ill-gotten gains, because they decide you can never. We're supposed to be in the land of the free and own our own home. You're supposed to be able to own things.
You can,
but no, you never own your home.
I own my home.
No, you don't, because if you don't pay the property taxes on it every year, the county or the state will come and they will take your home from you and they'll sell it for what you owe them in taxes.
But I still own it.
No, you don't.
Well, Wayne, I can sell it.
You can, yes, you can. You own it in that perspective, but you're never free and clear on it, because as long as you're paying property taxes, you're paying. You have to pay to own that home.
Yeah, I don't own my income either, because by that rationale, I pay income taxes, and if I don't, they'll take it. So I don't own my income either.
Well, and see, there you go. That's because from the very beginning, that's not the design that our founding fathers had for our country.
So basically you're saying that you support a consumption tax.
I believe if you play to pay to play. I mean, and look, I don't have. It's like some states on Tennessee. We're very fortunate.
Yeah.
Because I go every year and I pay my wheel taxes, for my registration on my car.
Yeah.
And that pays for, supposedly, it pays for the roads that I drive on and the services we get for being able to have nice roads, if some you want to consider some of our roads nice. But the point is that I'm paying for the privilege of being able to drive on the roads. I don't have a problem with that. Don't have a problem at all. But it gets very confusing and convoluted for people to really kind of understand, because property taxes. What are our property taxes?
Well, hang on, Wayne. I can unconfuse it real quick. I appreciate the call, and I think Wayne's on to something. It's fair to have a debate about what taxes we want to pay and how, but we shouldn't confuse it. Tariffs are a trade tax. It's a consumption tax on American businesses and consumers. If you want to have that as opposed to an income tax, okay, that's a policy choice. If you want to have an income tax instead of a property tax, that's a choice. How about the gas tax? We got all kinds of taxes, and we can have that conversation. But I just think we should be honest about it. And Matt, very quickly we got to the point where, oh, yeah, tariffs are taxes, because they are. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7. Y'all are beautiful. You've been wonderful. For the last several days, I hadn't had this much fun doing radio in a long time, and I appreciate y'all more than you'll ever know. 4460 said, going back to yesterday, this tariff talk is going over like a fart in church. Well, then consider me hooting and pooting, because I think it's really important to have the conversation, and I appreciate y'all joining me in that conversation. And look, I understand that we have different thoughts on this. Some of y'all say, well, Trump wants it. He gets it. I'll just back him. Okay. I mean, I'm just a little stubborn. I'm a conservative policy guy, and I like conservative policies. I don't like the government telling me what I can do, what I can buy, who I can buy it from. I just, and I don't like taxes. I'll be honest. I just don't. None of them, actually. But the bottom line is, y'all have been the best audience I could have over the last several days. I will be back in a couple weeks at my regular site on Wednesdays. Go check my stuff out at the Tennessean. Tell me what you think. I appreciate y'all. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.